G'day guys, Spittin Chips here. Another entertaining episode for you. I've got a bit to get off the old chest and just talk about things that I think need to be voiced and not really in the general conversations at the moment. And there is a possibility of a bit of misdirection and lost clarity within a specific country, and that's Australia. So there's a fair few questions I wanted answered, and I've found the answers to them, so I'm going to share them with you. To start off, what I'm going to do is play you a couple of videos, make them short clips off YouTube, and we'll just listen together, and we'll just start with a perspective that way. So this is mate Matt Berry. Raised some really interesting points recently.
Resistance, manipulate data, conceal damage, create a ministry of propaganda, pass laws punishing dissent, force people to identify themselves online so you jail them for speaking up. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bridge Nation, and instead of humble,
just go back to the
Imagine you're given a singular task to dismantle a nation, not with bombs and not with bullets, but from the inside out. Now, where would you begin? First, you'd need to identify the pillars that hold any strong country together: energy security, industrial capacity, financial stability, social cohesion, cultural unity, sustainable demographics, food security, defensive capability, strategic independence, and sovereign identity. These aren't just metrics on a spreadsheet, they're the foundations that separate prosperous nations from failed states. Then you craft a precise, calculated program to weaken each pillar, one by one. A systemic strategy to strip away everything that allows a country to thrive or endure. You'd start with energy. If you wanted to cripple a nation's productive capability, you target its power supply first, make it expensive, make it unreliable. Above all, make abundant energy resources politically toxic. Take a resource-rich nation and instead of harnessing its wealth, export it at rock-bottom prices, sometimes without collecting a cent in return. Then force citizens to pay premium prices for unreliable alternatives. Make people pay third-world prices for first-world power by forcing them to buy back unreliable energy generators made from their own exported resources. Energy isn't just power, it's the lifeblood of industry. It's the backbone of quality of life. The more energy a nation harnesses per capita, the more advanced its economy becomes, the stronger its society. So you confuse them, convince the public that high energy use is selfish, even reckless, make them accept higher bills, believe that using less is somehow noble, call it progress, or better yet, a sacrifice they should adopt with pride. Destabilize energy and you destabilize manufacturing. You can't smelt aluminium with good intentions, and you can't power steel mills with empty promises. You can't run factories on fairy dust without cheap, reliable energy. The factories close, the businesses fold, or flee offshore. A nation that can once build anything, ships, steel, cars, now struggles to assemble the basics. Why? Because manufacturing needs three things to survive: cheap energy, reliable energy, and a certainty that both will be there tomorrow and a decade into the future. Destroy all three and you destroy the ability to produce anything more complex than a meat pie. As manufacturing dies, so do the industries and communities built around it. Once thriving towns are left with empty factories, deserted storefronts, decaying neighborhoods. This isn't just the loss of jobs, it's the erasure of entire ways of life. People that once took pride in creating things are left to feel like relics in a world that no longer values them. But disintegration doesn't stop there. Next, you target social cohesion. Turn the housing market into a casino for foreign capital. Make housing so expensive that young couples abandon any thought of starting a family. Force multiple generations to live under one roof, not out of choice, but out of necessity. Create a system so twisted that a child born today could spend a lifetime just saving for a deposit. While your population struggles to afford rent, you'd flood the country with permanent migrants, with thousands of new people each day competing for the same homes, the same jobs, and the same hospital beds. You create a system so perverse that doctors live in shared housing and nurses sleep in their cars. This is where the ripple effect begins. Young people leave, drawn to distant cities or other countries. Those who remain sink into economic despair. The very fabric of society begins to fray as the pathways to prosperity fade, unraveling the threads that hold communities together. And here's where it gets truly diabolical. You call it growth. Label anyone questioning this madness as a racist. Gaslight locals, telling them to lower their expectations, convince them it's selfish to want a fair chance at housing, education, or a dignified job. Import a person or two every minute while telling citizens to expect less. Pretend that the influx is useful. Call them students. Cook the books to count foreign students' rent as exports and call it wealth. Turn the education system into a visa factory. Tell them we need more migrants to build more houses for more migrants. Claim perpetual skills shortages. Tell them it's never enough. Demoralize the population by forcing them to compete with the world's poor for basic rentals while the world's rich buy up their homes. Watch the social fabric disintegrate as young families abandon dreams of children. Erase cultural touchstones, demolish community venues, churches, sporting fields, and cinemas. Anything that fosters connection, anything that embodies the spirit of mateship, replace them with apartments to house the incoming masses and call that progress.
We'll do 6 more minutes on this video, guys. It goes for an hour and 18 minutes, but 6 more. All of it is good. Highly recommend watching it all, but we'll just go 6 more minutes.
When they ask apartments for who exactly, gaslight them. Watch as the culture itself fades. Its music, its film, its arts become relics of another era. Strip people of a shared feeling of place and a feeling of identity. Make the public question their own reality, as they never belonged here in the first place. It was never their country. Make them feel out of the nation's flag, the nation's day, the nation's culture. Erode the nation's high trust society and convince neighbors to distrust each other. Put communities against one another. And once where there's easy camaraderie, you leave suspicion and resentment. A country where you could leave your doors unlocked, where kids play cricket in the street until dark, where you could catch the last train home without fear, where you'd stop to help a broken down motorist with a no worries mate. A place where mateship wasn't just a word, it was a backbone of who we are. Now we have terrorism warning signs at shopping centres, cameras on every corner, and parents afraid to let their kids to walk to school. Another deliberate pillar of our nation torn down. From a society built on trust and looking out for each other to one where fear and suspicion rule exactly as planned. But the disintegration doesn't stop there. Now you turn to political integrity to foster an environment where the power serves the powerful. You let politicians make empty promises and ignore constituents and cater to the interests of corporations. When systemic corruption becomes the norm, people lose faith in those meant to represent them. Turn regulatory bodies into protection rackets for private growth, and when corruption becomes normal, people lose faith in democracy itself. Transform healthcare into chaos, stretch resources so thin that hospitals, surgeries, and clinics can no longer meet the basic demand. Attack doctors and nurses that speak up or don't follow the official line. Encourage immigration without corresponding investment in healthcare infrastructure. Force citizens to wait for essential services, to tolerate overcrowded hospitals, to feel that their lives and health has been sidelined in the pursuit of economic growth. The physical and mental strain mounts as people realize that the safety net they once relied on is fraying beyond repair. Health crises grow unchecked, leaving people more susceptible to everything from stress to preventable diseases. Then turn to law and order. Without economic stability and social trust, crime rises. But in turning into solutions, you under-resource law enforcement, leaving them overwhelmed. Public safety becomes a commodity, and only the wealthy can afford the kind of security that was once right for all. This loss of basic safety eats away at the very idea of society where people look out for each other, where the law is equal for all. Instead, fear becomes the unspoken rule, further driving people into isolated self-protective bubbles. Finally, silence any resistance, manipulate data, conceal damage, create a ministry of propaganda, pass laws punishing dissent, force people to identify themselves online so you jail them for speaking up. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Manual for National Suicide. This is Australia in 2024. Now, let me tell you and show you exactly how they're doing it, because once you understand, this is not incompetence. This isn't mere mismanagement. This is a controlled demolition of the great nation of Australia.
So, if any of you out there have been at a sort of a cross point many years ago, and you're wondering what is happening, and sometimes this can be confused with misinterpreting what growth is and progressing forward. For instance, using cash and then merging onto using electronic payments, no longer using cards and then using phones to make your payment. My proposition is I don't have an issue with all three. There could be an issue when you're not able to do one. But furthermore, if you've been in this country for over a decade, you've noticed things and you're wondering why they are happening. And then you come across a video like that by Matt Barry, and he's articulated it quite well, and has he raised a lot of points with you. I do some international work, and I've noticed I have the privilege of going out of the country and coming back in again, and I see significant changes every time. And one of the biggest significant changes was during the recent lockdowns and how several liberties were removed. I felt my personal liberties were revoked, and I never thought that would be a situation in this country. So let's move on to another video here.
Got a glut in global nickel. So we have excess supply in the world. The price of nickel has collapsed, and BHP's found itself basically at the sort of higher end of the cost curve, and as a result, it suspended operations. So it's really just a cost curve shakeout. That's pretty much as far as it goes there with regards to BHP. Now, regarding your broader question about whether this means that that China's going to be, shaking out its dependence on, I guess, other commodities, I think it already is, to be quite frank, and we can see that in the iron ore market. China's building out the Sinadui iron ore project in Africa, which is due to come online next year, and it's reportedly it's been dubbed the Pilbara killer because it's going to dump about 120 million tons of iron ore into the market a year, and it'll effectively make Africa the third largest iron ore exporter in the world after Australia and Brazil. And all this extra supply is likely to collapse the global iron ore price, which is obviously not going to be good for Australia. And it's also coming at the same time as China is winding down its building of apartments, empty cities, infrastructure, all those sorts of things, which has basically been the key driver of global iron ore demand for the past several decades. So we've effectively got this situation where global iron ore supply is going to increase because of all this African iron ore, at the same time as China's demand for iron ore is shrinking. And China's also basically building up its steel capacity by using scrap to make steel, which is also going to lessen its dependence on Australian iron ore. So I think the outlook for Australian iron ore is pretty dire over the next several years and longer term. And when global iron ore prices do tank, it means obviously that the federal government's going to get less corporations tax, which is going to harm the federal budget as well. And you might remember a few weeks ago we talked about how Australia's benefited, has been the biggest beneficiary in the world from these surging commodity prices over the past decade or so. And that's according to economist Chris Richardson, former Deloitte Access Economics economist. He estimates that the federal government gained an extra $100 billion in corporate taxation. Well, a lot of that's going to reverse out if we do get this iron ore collapse, the collapse in the iron ore price, because it still is, our biggest export.
Given that,
So if you're fortunate enough to be aware of the commodity industry in Australia, and those commodities are one of the most prominent is iron ore. The next one is, from my knowledge, gas, which is made into LNG and then exported. And then you have all the other minerals: silver, gold, copper, uranium, oil, silica. Australia has it all. What's been on my mind for a while is that because of my fortunate position of working hard all my life, I've been able to travel for employment, and I've witnessed other countries and what they do with their funds. And if you don't know much about Norway, look into it. They have a sovereign fund. So I was questioning this years and years and years ago, going, what are we getting for selling our stuff? And it's everyone that lives and is born in this country, that works to make this country a great place, deserves the benefits of what is in this country and what has been dug or sucked out of the ground and transported somewhere else for a price. What are we getting for it? Because it's all going, and there's some indicators that the lucky period is finishing off, or could finish off, or it's going to go for a glut soon. I hope not, and I hope we just wake up to this and go, I just hope the average person starts to understand of what we're actually doing here and what we're not doing. This is from Walk the World.
response to the Reserve Bank's aggressive interest rate hikes, which made property significantly more expensive. However, prices defied gravity and increased due to record net overseas migration and acute stock shortages. But as a result, Australian property values have decoupled from borrowing capacity, resulting in historically low affordability. Realistically, home prices will continue to fall until the RBA cuts interest rates, which would increase affordability and improve borrowing capacity. But even then, growth will be anemic at best. This is consistent with our three scenarios and our base case as reported in recent months. Now, the latest data comes from CoreLogic's Home Value Index to December, with values down 0.1% nationally over the month after peaking in October and holding flat in November.
So what we have here is a period where it's flatlining. It's gone up, and now it's flatlining, purely because the demand is reducing because of whatever wealth there's already invested, or everybody's stretched out so much they've got nothing to use anymore.
Never questioned, and she knew on the face it was a lie.
Yeah.
But she never questioned that it was a lie. Let's look about education. Why are we all going to school at the same time and learning everything at the same pace? It makes no sense. You might be better at math. I might be better at, history.
In age-graded groups.
Yes, it makes, and when you stop and think, you go, especially with technology nowadays, you can have dynamic testing. Okay, once a month you test, you stay here, you get extra help, that's fine. You can read ahead, but somehow we all have to start school at the same time, study everything at the same rate, and people who are worse than others, or not through any fault of their own, are punished. It makes no sense, but we never question it. And now, thanks to podcasting like this, you'd be like, wait a minute, this is kind of weird, isn't it? Why does everyone have to learn everything at the same rate and at the same time?
Well, you know that it was the school systems were established in accordance with the Prussian military model.
Yes, of course.
And that the goal there was to make obedient soldiers and really, literally, to crush out any proclivity towards individual striving. I mean,
just one more thing. There's a book called Illiberal Reformers, which talks about this at length. It's amazing the boner Western leftists have for European ideas. Like, they went over to Prussia, they saw this, and because it's foreign, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing, this is next gen. Same thing happened a couple generations later with Lenin and the communists. It's like, okay, it's from overseas, it must be better than our stupid American values, is how they perceived it. And the consequences have been absolutely disastrous. Like, if you ask most conservatives in 2019, could COVID have happened in America, the lockdowns and all the submission, they would have laughed in your face. But they ran the experiment, they have the data. Their theory was wrong. People are docile.
I was shocked at the degree of, well, my conclusion observing Toronto during the COVID was that 70% of Canadians would have worn a mask for the rest of their life. And I would say 30% of them would have worn that mask happily if they could have continued informing on their neighbors.
Oh yeah, and the thing that's crazy to that is Canada is not a hospitable country. It's a nation of frontiersmen. And look at Scotland. Like, what happened to these peoples?
Or Australia.
Oh yeah, right, yeah, there you go. And now they're castrati.
Yeah. Well.
So, yeah. So it speaks for itself there. Branches onto personal freedoms. And what is the intention? What do we all want? Or what is the upper echelons trying to do? Because yes, in one way, it is great to have everybody on the same path because you have uniformity and it's easier to progress, though you could have situations of, like they said, individuals being left behind. So then you're not really advancing everybody, you're causing a divide. And what is the end purpose? I would have thought is everybody excels. Like, I personally would want the whole world to excel and become better. And then living through in Australia through the shutdowns and then the force to take something in your body with no choice, making mandatory, and proclaiming it was free choice, but there was never any free choice. It was, you do this, take this, or you don't get anything. Like you can't be employed, you lose your job, you lose everything. So in the end, you're forced to do it. And then if you did go out and protest, even though there was other protests during those periods, the protest for that one was shut down, and there was violence, utter violence. And then you saw the other type of people going, I don't understand why you're not just going along with it. Why can't there be the perception of, if you thought you were weak or you had certain issues or anybody around you had certain issues, yeah, go ahead, there it is, take it. Like, it's freedom of choice. There has to be some type of freedom of choice, but now we don't know. And like right now, I have noticed getting around in Oz, there's so many people sick. It's freaking summer, mate. It's hot outside, 37 degrees. Why is everybody freaking sick? I've never noticed this ever. So what's going on? What is going on? And then I looked deep into it, and then I found that certain types have altered you, and it's altered you for the rest of your life. So all you can do is just try and strengthen your body and your mind, because there's two parts here. One was the mind control, which put you down, and the other one was your body. Didn't get any sunlight, you weren't exercising, eating terrible food, and not giving yourself the ability to be exposed to sickness. Now, obviously, you don't want to become sick, but it's the only way your organisms get stronger from molecular level upwards. This is WA building inspectors, and this is a bloke that's inspecting. So what we have in Australia is, at least in WA, you can request a building inspector before you sign off on your newly built house or a project, just to verify everything is up to code, because the average person doesn't know the ins and outs of buildings. And if you've got a lot of new people come to the country, they don't know, because they've just been like, I don't know how many months or years, they still don't even know what's the minimum requirements. So you get these people in to look at your places. And this is not something that's just new. This has been going on for a while now. So it really shows the trajectory of a so-called safe and good investment, where you're locking up all your money into life debt.
Which is just over those hills, okay? So that means that you have to have galvanized members being used. All right. So this is brand new, okay? This is the lintel. Now, I'm going to come back to this lintel because there's a lot more to that story. Let's take a quick look at how this builder is delivering this home. Okay, incomplete painting.
Brand new house.
Downpipes, not done. Splash grates, not done. I'm going to come back to that. Exposed aggregate, stained to shit. Let's look at a quick look at the incomplete works over here. Right. Right, this is someone's home. This has been going for 3 years, and I'm going to start by saying there's a prior video that I did where the roof was so bad it got ripped off. So this is a new roof as well. Okay, so they did not learn their lesson. Look at this. Okay, I'm going to move relatively quickly through this video so that I can get just some of the defects. Tap, skew, overpaint, doesn't work. This is not being painted. There's no thermite barrier or sticker in here. Cool and normal. These are the eaves. These eaves are like this the whole way through. Lintels not painted. Right, lintels not painted. Silicon on the brickwork. Keep going. Nothing sealed around those areas. None of the lintels are painted, as I mentioned. This completely skew. Like I said, all of this is pretty typical throughout. Windows are full of shit. Stink pipe not painted. So don't worry about that. I'm sure at some stage they'll stick the downpipe on. And they've done it in some areas, which is nice of them. That one must have already been there. You can see the mark. So that downpipe was there. Now it's gone missing. Anyway, that's broken. Sorry about this. I'm trying to get my video to work properly. Look at that perla. There's a hole. There's a hole. And you're wondering what that is. It's 40 millimeters. Look at this. Look at that shit. Right? Someone has given their hard-earned money for this job to get this. That brickwork is totally loose. That is completely stuffed. For some reason, there's an extra valve on that tap, which is not supposed to be there, but that's okay. This is not secured down onto a chain. There's a downpipe. Now, interestingly enough, that downpipe's not allowed to be there because it has to be a minimum of 100 millimeters away from an electrical outlet, right? So that's not going to work even when he puts it in. Look at this door. This is swollen from moisture damage. You have to protect the building elements, particularly when there's no eave. So rain head might have helped him. He doesn't really need door furniture because the door doesn't open. He's walking inside, incomplete works, damaged ceilings everywhere, grout. Do you remember that lintel on the outside that was not galvanized? Now a T-bar is a T-bar so that you can brick onto the base of it, and the T-bar's flange or upstand can essentially be hidden. That's different to a UV beam where you have a top hat, which is what they used over here. It didn't work. They can't brick it up. They therefore cannot install this properly anyway. And then look what they did to make up the height with the wall plates. They just put 35mm by 70mm pine on top of it. Haven't fixed it down at all. They can't brick it. They can't do anything with this. Look at that, right? And it's supposed to be galvanized. So 1, wrong lintel. 2, wrong bearing. 3, incorrect ability to get brickwork onto it so that you can secure to the brickwork and fit the frame onto here. There's so much wrong with this. On this side here, let's have a look here. Right, 3 years. 3 years it took this guy to completely fuck up this home. Okay, let's have a quick look at this. Right. Now, you might not be able to see it, but if it looks like an ocean to you, it is a bit like an ocean. Let's just stick this piece of gyprock on. All right. You're probably wondering how much that is. Look at that. All right. Look at this.
Can you see all the divots there, guys? So what he's pointing out here is that this is supposed to be screened flat, and the water is supposed to flow a certain way, which would be out of the roller door, and it's not. So it's going to puddle up and then maybe flow inwards some way, or if there was a little flooding, that would go into the house. There's multiple things there, and I'm not even a builder, and this is what I consider basic stuff. But for me, I'm one of those people that has a lot of experience, so I know these things, and this is why the average person has to bring in a builder. But also it's a little bit of like I look at this builder's work and building inspector's work. He may be a builder, but this guy's a builder inspector, and he's doing a good job. And there's word getting out there that there's so many building inspectors that aren't doing the job as well. They're in the pockets of the builders and they're just getting paid off. And this is the type of stuff that's getting passed around in Australia now, and it's been going on for years. It just, yeah, and then there's all these new people, and there's the prices of housing are just going up. The property is going up. The struggling is going up. So you see yourself pushing and pushing higher and higher, and then you buy into something like this, and this is what you get. And it's a purely a thing like this. There's like a small portion of it because the regulators are all over it. Now the regulators are not controlling this, and you got all this labor coming in that's apparently skilled labor that's not certified, and they get what RPL, recognized prior learning, pushed through, or wherever it may be, all this fake fees. This is the type of quality you come out and you spend so much money. And then the other side of it is that everybody's trying to get the cheapest house built. So this might be just a cause because you're trying to get the cheapest house, but it's not the point. The point is that you pay them out and you get a level. You get the bit like the bar. You meet the bar, and then it's better than that. And it's well beyond it. It's just, yeah, it's disappointing. It's disappointing because I love this country. I really do. There's things that with any country you go, I don't like, but so much stuff I like about it is the weather, the soil, mostly the people, healthcare, education to a degree. I feel like education is dropping. It's gone to shit. The levels of it just dropping. It's just handing out freaking these certificates that doesn't mean much anymore, but charging exuberant prices for it. So there's all those things that just push me to want to leave this country. And then I struggle because I go, there's so much good stuff there. But you're just pushing me away with all this type of stuff. But at the moment, it can't be helped. I just wish it could be changed. So we're just going to push in through to some statistics, and then I'm going to give you some details. We get some a little bit of background music going, eh? Oh, that's a bit loud. So I want to look into graphs and see what graphs look like. So you have here, this is international student numbers by country and by state. So you can see 2024, and if you let me go back in time. No, this is just 2024, and this is showing Australia, and this is showing the net visas that are coming in at the moment. Student numbers. China at number 1, 181,000. India, 135,000. Nepal, 63,000. The Philippines, 38,000. Vietnam, 36,000. Colombia, 33,000. Pakistan, 23,000. Indonesia, 23,000. Thailand, 23,000. Brazil, 22,000. Sri Lanka, 18,000. Bangladesh, 17,000. Malaysia, 16,000. Korea, 13,000. Bhutan, 13,000. Hong Kong, 13,000. Japan, 11. Taiwan, 10. Kenya, 9. United States. The majority of there is third world countries. So this is good. I mean, this is from a positive point that you got people coming into the country from these, and yeah, they're wanting to come and study here. Let's move on. There's a fair bit to get through now. So this is on international students. So in 2004, I don't know what this total is here, but saying 1 million. So we got, this is the type of education. The blue here is higher education, and the dark blue is vet. So the high education is 486,000, and the vet is 351,000. And then the orange is just schools. Ilikos, don't know what that is. That's got 127,000. So you have undefined schools, and then you got universities and such. So you're going, well, what? Okay, that's what it's comprised of. Let's move on. So this is just like a heat map, which is showing you where the majority of it, and it's mostly from the Australasia, so where it's closest to us, the neighbors. So it's beyond Indonesia, and it's from China and India. That's the majority. Now I've heard that actually there's allocations for each country. They get allocated, and some countries get more allocated more than others. And I want to know why. What is the reason for doing that? I can understand from if European countries, like their education is relatively good, but you'd want to do what I thought is bridging visas, where they come over and do a year here and then go back. I'd want more of that. So this is just saying another graph on the study visa, international students, and where they're coming from. So it's more of an expanded view, and it's only after, what's it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 countries you get to one first world country, which is Germany. Moving on to the next one. Where's this gone? Oh, it's gone. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Okay, here. So this is, have you ever heard of the US debt clock? Here you go. And this is an interesting piece where it shows you the current US national debt, which is 36 trillion. And the spending is 7 trillion. And then they got where it shows you your actual interest on that debt is 5 trillion. And then it'll show you your actual income. So your income is, tax revenue is 4 trillion. So at US is pretty much the world economy. We will follow what, until further notice, we follow what the US does, and then especially for us, we also follow what China does and other emerging economies. They've got extreme amounts of wealth because all the production has been placed to them, given to them, and we buy it off them. But it just shows that something's got to happen in America very soon, because they're getting to the point where they can't furnish the interest on their debt. So something's going to happen very soon, and you're going to see it change in the world, purely because you can't default the debt. Here's the government debt. Greece, first, the highest is Greece. It's percentage of the GDP, and it's up at 184%. And you got United States closely behind by 151%. So Greece, if you don't know about Greece went to shit. Greece went really bad a few years ago, and then Germany bailed them out. Next one you got after that is it's Greece, Italy, then United States, then it's France, Spain. So Europe, you can see Europe. Fuck mate, it's going down the toilet. Portugal, United Kingdom, Hungary, Austria, Finland, Germany. So Germany is considered the backbone of Europe, and that's at 64% GDP to government debt. In Australia, we're at 53.5%. Now, you might think, oh yeah, that's great, but then you got to take in consideration the population. So let's move on to the next one. This one here is the central government debt of Australia. It's a percentage of GDP. So it sparked all the way up to 70%. And that was in 2021, and 2022 is at 58%. So just waiting for more details to come out. This one is just showing from 1990 to 2022. And then you just, on this graph, you can see from 2008, which, what do we remember, down 2008 to 2009, financial crisis, global, and it was at 18% of GDP, the debt. And now it's all the way up at 70%. So someone's just got a big old lever, mate, and it's going boom, print. And we're not recovering from it. We just keep going, keep going. So what happens? Well, so this is government revenues. The government revenues, you can see it's like it's not linear. I forgot the name of what type of graph this is, but trekking upwards. And you can see the revenue is increasing, but why is it increasing and how is it increasing? Is taxes increasing? Is the revenue from our exports increasing? Are we taxing the general people, businesses? Here's Australian corporate tax rate. So back in 1986, it was at 49%. This is the government tax rate, so it's fixed. Then it dropped down to 39%, 1990, dropped down to 33% at 1993, jumped back up to 36%, late 1990s, and then at 2022, it dropped to 30%. And this is for everybody. There isn't a company tax rate that's variable. So you earn under 100,000, your business turns over 100,000 a year, or turns over under 200 or 300, 500,000, and have different levels that you get to certain criteria, just like you have personal income. Why isn't it the same? That the bigger companies that turn over millions and millions and in the billions, why isn't their government tax rate higher? The reason for that is that you don't want to stem. There's one point where you don't want to tax companies too much because they won't want to be in this country, because what's the point? Take their business somewhere else. But you've got to find that balance where you're charging the small man, and then you get the bigger players, they need to pay some as well. It's said that if you have a lower tax rate for businesses, you'll see more investment. So you've got to find some kind of a trade-off. This is showing Australian home ownership rates. In the late 90s, it was at its highest, and it's dropping down. So 2022 is 66%. In the late 90s, it was at the 70s. Australian home loans, this is in the millions, yeah. So 2010, it was at 1.59 thousand million, and now it's 2024 is at 18.6k thousand million. So we're looking at Australian residential property prices. And these are all the spikes, fluctuations in prices. Here you can see the Australian consumer credit has gone up, exponential. This is just crazy. Early 2000, it was 274 billion, and now it's all the way up at 2,320 billion. How is that possible? Where is this? Well, one of those things will be credit, line of credit, personal loans, credit cards. The prices of housing goes up and it creates equity. This one is the Australian disposable personal income, also gone up. Look at that trend. Savings ratio. We had, you can see back at 2000s, early 2000s, you can see it's really low. It's negative 0.5% of the savings ratio of the household. And then it sprung up 2009, leveled off, and then during the shutdowns, all the way up to 23%. So where does all that savings come from? Handouts from the government. And now all that savings has dropped off. You went from 20% savings all the way down to 1.5%, slowly ticking up 1.5 to the 2.6%. All that money is just gone. Now it's gone from requiring to spend bills, hardship, loan repayments, food prices, petrol prices, Australian bankruptcies. Look at this one, fluctuates, trends down, and then sees bankruptcies, they hold together here, it drops all the way down. Well, remember during that time, during the shutdowns, there was a prevention put in that you couldn't close out. And now look at this, boom, it is shot all the way up. 2024, November, 1,400 companies, bankruptcies in the year 2024. Now, there's further information you got to look into that, because whenever you start a company, there's a likelihood, I think it's like 20% of the possibility of a company succeeding when on startup, some real low number. But this, I believe, is functioning companies that have been operating, and they've just got to the point where they just go, we got to close the doors. And there could be for many reasons. Prices of paying your employees, prices of services, food, and the actual revenue you can get back from people. This is small business sentiment. So this is showing that it's just dropped off the cliff. It's negative 4 points, negative 12 points. So small business at this present time have just got no faith in opening something and feeling positive that it's going to succeed. Australian business confidence apparently is just simmering along it's at negative 3 points now. So the whole business confidence. And the last time it dropped off was during COVID. And the other major one was GFC. So the corporate profits have just launched into the stratosphere. 141,000 million corporate profits year on year in the late 2020s. Where's all that? How can that happen? No one was doing anything that whole time. How can corporations make so much profits? Australian bankruptcies, we've looked at that already. Gold reserves dropped off, and now they want to increase it again. I don't know why it dropped off. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. But for some reason, at 2015, they started to reduce the tonnage. No idea what happened there. Possibly reserves were sold to the individuals, or someone else purchased them. I got no idea why that dropped off. Australian Terrorism Index sprung up, and apparently it's simmering off now. Loans to private sector has just shot all the way up. Now 2024 is 1,200 million. Australian job vacancies apparently is now dropping off. So 330,000 apparently. Part-time is pretty hard to see what's going on there. Full-time change, employment, pretty hard to trend that one. You'll get more of a in-depth look. Let's go 1 yearly, 3 yearly. You can sort of see what's going on there. Australian population, kaboosh. We're now at 27.21 million. Unemployed persons. Apparently we have 600,000 unemployed people in this country at the moment. 10-year bond, something to be starting to take notice of. It's your bond values. A 10-year bond now is at 4.5. And the last one here is the government, Australian government net debt to GDP. And it's at 43.8%. Now, there's been a couple of different values there. It's quite significant, the 43. So, gross domestic produce is GDP. So you don't want your debt to go higher than what percentage to what you're actually producing as a country, as an economy, because you can't sustain what you're doing. So I'm just going to get rid of all these now. Make it a little bit easier for me to get through all this. Okay, so now we're just going to get into some text, which I've taken all that into consideration, what I'm thinking, and I have a sort of perception, but I'm not completely sure because I'm not exposed. Sorry about that, guys. Just trying to turn that volume down. There we go. Because I'm not exposed to this details, my line of work doesn't allow me to be exposed, and I reckon that's the majority of people out there. You're not exposed to the direct information, and to go. I feel a lot of it's nearly hearsay, or what you read in the papers, or what they're telling you or letting you see, and then you have to go to the point by yourself of trying to find this information. So let's get a bit into what I've wanted to deliver to you, so you can be a bit more informed. We're about 50 minutes in on this video. Try and get through this information as much as possible, as quick as possible. If I can't, I'm just going to make another video for you guys. All right, so I wanted to know, during that time when we were locked down over 19, and then we were forced to take it, apparently that was going to prevent everything from happening, and I do recall that, and I'm sure you recall that as well. So I wanted to know, what was it? And so I wanted to know what was the public sentiment, and I really didn't really have an idea of what what the frame of minds were out there, because you were caught in your little ecosystem and then just surrounded by fear. So here, the factors affecting vaccine hesitancy in Australia. Some key factors influencing vaccine hesitancy in Australia, according to surveys, included young age. So 18 to 20-year-olds were more likely to be hesitant. That's a significant point. So what is it about these younger people that's making them so hesitant about this? Is they feel that their freedoms have been taken away? Unsure. Geography. People in rural and remote areas express higher levels of hesitancy compared to those in urban areas. So urban areas, cities, are you stuck into an echo chamber and you're just feeding off what everybody else says? Cultural backgrounds. There were differences in vaccine acceptance among different cultural and ethnic groups, with some migrant communities showing greater reluctance. Education and trust. Higher levels of education and trust in health authorities were strongly correlated with greater willingness to take the vaccine. So what I noticed from the WA Premier, he was actually using the health minister as his reference point and delivering information and making decisions of that. So there's a lot of people hating on one person. I wouldn't you take that in consideration. He was making judgments of what that person was saying, and this was in the midst of stifling medical opinions. So I wanted to know how was this survey taken? What samplings? Samplings were either 10 to 20,000 Australians, 1,000 to 5,000, 1,000 to 200. And then I wanted to know, these are obviously, you can read here's the sampling methods. They did phone calls and everything else, online surveys. And then it was just progressing to, wait a minute, I just jumped across. I wanted the actual numbers. Here we are. So a survey done, I don't know why they can't give me exact size, but it was YouGov poll, 1,000, 2,000 correspondents, resulted in 68 to 70% of Australians supporting vaccine mandates and for certain sectors. There was another done by ANU, and that was done by 3,000, and it showed 80% were willing. So apparently, they, from what I read here, is they did an extensive sampling to know that they were taking it from each groups. And this wasn't just like it was also taken into consideration wealth. So at that point there, I want to know during that time how much was given for from the government payments for JobSeeker and JobKeeper. And just so you're aware, I never once took these payments because I worked all the way through it, and I worked during the hype, the mania, and it was never an issue. And then all of a sudden, to continue working, it was now forced on me to have it. So I won't read it. I'm just going to go straight to a graph. The number of recipients for JobKeeper payments, and for those who aren't from Australia, JobKeeper and JobSeeker was because they shut down the whole economy, locked everybody up, and they let out essential workers. No one had any income. So the government was paying employers and for the people to do nothing. So it was just a massive stimulus. All this money, so no production at all. So GDP, production just fell off the cliff. And this happened all around the world, but in Australia, we apparently had the ability to just give out money and shut down the economy. But the thing is, the majority of people wanted it, showed by those percentage of numbers. And that's what part that spins me out. So JobKeeper payments, 3.6 million employees at the peak, 90 billion over the lifetime of the program. JobSeeker, 2.5 million at the peak, 1.6 million at the end of 2020, 22 billion was given out. Total, 112 billion given out to people, and they were doing nothing. Really, really like affected me from someone to say, because it wasn't equal, it wasn't fair, saying to me, or you're an essential worker, you can keep working, so I'm not entitled to it. Apparently I'm exposed to all the risks, so I go, I'm doing my part. All of a sudden they're giving out all this money, and now you increase the amount of circulating currency, so then it dilutes the worth of your currency, the country currency, and then it drives inflation up. And then from that, you need to put interest rates up. And then there's scarcity because no one's printing or making anything. So key statistics here. Don't need to get into that. You can pause the video and read it. The conclusion of that, at the peak of the relief payments in 2020, approximately 47 of the total Australian workforce, including employed and unemployed individuals. So those unemployed ones are still getting paid as well. Were receiving some form of government assistance through JobKeeper or JobSeeker. So progressing down now. Here I'm just asking about the debt clock. What was the what are the numbers for Australia? So here you can see an estimate. So the national debt of Australia is 1.1 trillion. This is approximate. This is all supplied by ChatGPT. Debt per citizen, 42,000. Federal budget deficit, 21 billion. Government spending, 675 billion. Government revenue, 540 billion. So how can we be spending more than our revenue? GDP, gross domestic product, 2.1 trillion. Unemployment rate, 3.5%. Well, is that a true unemployment rate? Because it doesn't take into consideration, are people doing multiple jobs? Population is 26.7 million. The interest on the debt is 20 billion. 20 billion is our interest. Government debt to GDP, 52%. Now this is a very key percentage to take a consideration of, to remember. The current inflation rate is 5.4%. Well, it's saying 5.4%, but is that what you're getting as your loan? A little bit different, isn't it? So what is the concerning percentage for the government debt to GDP? The government debt to GDP ratio is a key indicator used to access the country's fiscal health. It measures the total government debt as a percentage and its gross domestic product, GDP, providing insight into the country's ability to repay its debts providing insight into the country's ability to repay its debts relative to its size of its economy. Now, also, they change GDP as well. So they update it or they remove things. Now I'm going to take it on a pot, like give them benefit of the doubt and say they're updating the GDP in a positive manner, but what happens if they're doing it in a negative manner and manipulating it? The general guidelines for the debt to GDP ratios, low debt. So remember I was talking about that percentage. What's our percentage again? The current percentage is 52%. So low debt ratio, below 40%. Countries with a debt of GDP ratio below 40% are generally considered to have relatively low debt levels, indicating more fiscal flexibility. So what that means is that they've got more flexibility of what they can do in the economy, and you could take a degree of risk if you want to invest into new technologies or hand out more business loans for more startups, things like that. Or you could hand out more aid to the rest of the world, or you could bring in more uneducated people and educate them. You could also give out benefits to your current citizens of the country, and do benefits like, and as one I'm a massive advocate for, is if women were choosing to have children, I want to support them more. I want to support them more. I feel women aren't supported enough. So women have to get out there in the workforce now. There's a degree of women that love it, but as I suppose there's a lot of women out there would love to be housewives. I would, the amount of thousands of dollars I pay in tax, I would love that to go there. With a passion, I would definitely love to get out there, especially the women that educate themselves. There's nothing wrong with the ones that don't educate themselves, but ones that do go and educate themselves and then want to have a family. I would like them to know that, hey, they don't have to stress about not having an income to help their partner or help themselves with their life. They're supported. Having children in this country is a great thing, and we don't support it anymore. We're actually anti-children at the moment. And you can see that, and I'll show you that the reason why that supports. So moderate debt, 40 to 60%, that's where we're at the moment. A ratio in this range is often viewed as manageable, suggesting the country can handle its debt burden without too much strain. Many developed countries fall in this category. We're not a developed country. What is going on? With all the resources we have, how that Oh, I would like to swear at this point, but what is going on? And that's if we are, so when I said about manipulating the GDP to debt, so this is high debt, 60 to 90%. Countries in this debt to GDP ratio in this range maybe face growing concerns about sustainability, especially if their growth rates are slow and if borrowing costs rise. Well, sounds like that actually is us at the moment. The European Union has set a guideline of 60% of GDP as the upper limit of the member states, though many countries have exceeded this limit in recent years. So they were saying in the European Union they don't want you to go above that because you've got to burden the rest of everybody else. And if you want to be a group of countries, you're never going to progress forward because you're always going to bring down the ones that are trying to progress forward. And then above 90%, a ratio above 90% is often seen as a high and may raise concerns about the country's ability to repay its debt without negatively impacting future economic growth. Some economists argue that sustained debt above 90% can lead to the slower economic growth and potentially higher borrowing costs due to the increased risk perceptions by investors. Countries with debt ratios above 100% are often viewed with significant caution, especially if there is no strong growth outlook. So what this is saying is that you're pretty much doomed. Unless you're going for like a winning ticket, you're done. No one's going to want to invest you because you've got no possibility of repaying that debt. So why would they give you a loan? So your debt, the country's debt indicator, so its rating will fall. And then it's going to have next to no growth or negative growth. This would be scary stuff. So here it's saying is why it's concerned, but I've just pretty much described to you what's going on. So Australia's debt to GDP ratio. As of 2023, Australia's debt to GDP ratio is estimated to be around 52%. This is generally considered moderate and manageable, as it is well below 90% of 100%, which is typically seen as concerning thresholds. This is unbelievable how they say this, and obviously ChatGPT is getting this information from sources, so someone's written and said this. How can you have that perception in this country? We should be like at 30, 20. While it is important to monitor the ratio and how it evolves over time, Australia's current debt level does not immediately raise alarms. Well, it freaking should. However, the situation could change if economic growth slows significantly or if the government faces difficulty in managing the fiscal policies. Now, remember what I was talking about? How I showed you those 3 videos in the very beginning. It was talking about iron ore dropping off, commodities dropping off. America coming in now and wants to be the world exporter of oil, gas, and their minerals. So the demand of ours is going to decrease. Key considerations: interest rates, low interest rates, as seen in Australia, can make higher levels of debt more manageable because the cost of servicing the debt is lower. Problem with that is you have growth, but then you've got the downside of it. Economic growth in a country's economy grows at a healthy pace. It can often support higher levels of debt. Strong growth can lead to higher tax revenues, helping manage and service the debt. So yeah, as long as you're growing, as long as you're innovating and manufacturing, debit structure, the maturity and the currency denomination of the debt also matter. Countries that issue debt in their own currency have a long-term maturity structures are generally better positioned to manage higher debt levels. Conclusion: a debt to GDP ratio above 60 to 90% can be concerning. Yeah, okay, we know what's going on now. So just scrolling down now. So I was like, okay, now I understand where we are now. So you guys have got a fair idea what's going on with Australia at the moment. There's a heap of spending going on, unprecedented spending. Now I wanted to know what's going on with the visas in Australia. So just scrolling down here. So I went to the table in the last 10 years. So showing me student visa grants currently at 2022. This is the received numbers, and I've got estimated numbers, but I'll just go straight to the estimate numbers actually. So it's estimated in 2024, the granted student visa numbers was 540,000. Subsequently, visa applications. So this means that the ones that came here on student visas and then progressed onto skilled work visas or something similar was 110,000. So 110,000 of those 540,000 visas. So we can find out what is that as a percentage. 20% of visas that come into this country. So that's 20% of people are just using, I don't know how many people, but you were shown by exiting, but how many people are actually staying, just using the visa to get in the country to stay and to get another visa. I'm not saying it's good or bad, just taking that into perspective where you go back all the way to 2023. Maybe find out. In 2023 it was 17%. So I'm just scrolling down as well. So this is more expansion of this table, and it's showing you new permanent visas, immigration. So this is the immigration into the country. So 2023, 2022, 2023, and 2024 was 200, 230,000, 240,000, 250,000. Citizenship grants was 120,000, 130,000, 135,000. New permanent residents from student visas. Will we discuss those numbers? The crime rate. So as you can see, as this population is increasing, and it's not saying that these are the people that are causing the crime, but this is going up, and there's something going on here. Now it might be an increase of the people is causing more people to become pushed down in the wealth categories, and they're the resultants of crime, or this could be the certain type of people that are coming into the country, and that's because the crime's increasing. So that means the checks is not being done properly, or government support is not for the right people. And also another key point here is welfare payments. So the welfare payments right now is 120 billion. 120 billion. What is going on? Whereas back in 2004 it was 80 billion. It's the welfare country. I wonder why there's something wrong. Where's all this money going? So at this point I was going, okay, why is there more crime? And why is there more welfare payments? You wouldn't want that. You want people to be working. That's the main thing you want, hey? That's the reason why you come to country. You would think the opportunity to work here, it's amazing opportunity. So now I want to the point here was what did I want here? So this is more a breakdown on the immigration. There's a specific thing I wanted to see. Yep, okay. So this shows what we are letting into the country. So total Australian migration. This is where you get those levels for where you hear about the total migration. So 120,000, so 520,000 2023 and 540,000 2024 is estimated for those two. So there's your 1.6 billion, sorry, 1.6 million. And then you have your permanent migration. Skilled migration in 2023 was 110,000. 2024, 115,000. Family migration. So this is people that have migrated the country via skilled, student, or progressed on to citizenship, and now all of a sudden their family comes in from that migration as well. We've got humanitarian aid. So this is what we deemed countries that are war-torn, or we need to give them humanitarian efforts. It could be from weather, war, the country's gone to shit. However, how we rank it, so that's 45,000, 50,000, 2023 and 2024. And then you've got temporary migration, 280,000, 209,000, 290,000. Student visas. Student visas just gone berserk, mate. 2004, we had 120,000 visas. Now, in 2023, 280,000. 2024, 290,000 visas. Working holiday visas in 2023, 75,000. 2024 is 80,000. Compared to 2004, 25,000. Temporary work visas in 2004 was 35,000. Now 2023 is 65,000, and 2024 is 70,000. And other temporary visas. Is there some kind of correlation between crime and welfare payments with the increased numbers of people coming to this country? Is it the people that are coming into the country? Is it the people that are already in the country? Or is it a combination of the two? So now there's another graph here. So now I was like, okay, I understand where the visa is at now. What's going on with training? Because there's if you haven't heard, if you're not from Australia, maybe you get news of it, but there's a massive shortage of houses. And that's from flats, we call apartments here, villas, semi-detached, detached, townhouses, houses. We're in a massive need, and we don't have it. And one of the reasons was because we stopped building, then we decided to lock down the freaking country, stop building that way. And then all of a sudden we said, okay, let's let in 1.6 million people. And then I'll tell you the reason why they did that at the end. I'm just going to make a note. Why did that happen? Why increase? Actually, no, I'll just say it now. So we shut down the economy, right? We gave out all this money. And all of a sudden, what should have happened was this country, as well as a lot of other countries, we should have went straight into a recession and maybe depression. Because we gave out all this money, nothing was getting produced. No one could make anything. We couldn't get anything from overseas. Supply chains were blocked. The market sentiment. No one was buying our stuff. Like China completely stopped buying all our stuff. And we couldn't get stuff in. So everything was a halt because we decided to shut down the world. So at the time I was predicting that house prices would drop. But that didn't happen. Do you know why? They let in the floodgates and created a massive scarcity. And interest rates went up. And then the government started giving money out to people that could normally not afford get a house. Now, there's nothing wrong with helping people out, but it's a combination of all these things because you're paying more. And then there's the quality of bills that we jumped on before. So I was predicting it to go down, houses price to go down because that's what needs to happen for a reset. But no, they opened up the floodgates. And the reality is here now, if they didn't, the economy would have went into shit and we don't know what would have happened. And everybody's complaining about the prices of inflation, the prices of a house, how there's nothing there. When you guys were advocate for it, you wanted the place to be shut down. You wanted free money. You wanted to have a go at anybody that was speaking out about, hey, let's think about this and assess the whole situation. Like, how can you be claiming about take some freaking responsibility? It's like everybody's got post-traumatic stress from that fucking period of time, and they just want to forget about it and move on to the next thing. They completely forgot what they freaking caused. It's like a blame thing. It's like, fuck, mate. Sorry for the language, but you know how many bloody fuck ups we've had in this country, and it seems to happen again and again and again. And we just keep doing one after the other, where it's wasting our resources. One of the biggest fuck ups. And now we're causing this divide between peoples, and people haven't got houses and no one can afford. So we've got this massive stagnant economy. The GDP is dropping and the freaking government debt is going up. And then how are we going to freaking finish it? And then you're at home and if you're a high income earner, you're going, I'm barely getting by. I'm not progressing forward. How are the ones freaking doing when they're not high income earners? For instance, a teacher. One is supposed to be one of the most regarded and praised professions. Like, one, because they want to do that, and secondly, because they don't make that much money. It's like stress. Why are we stressing the freaking people out? Anyway, so I wanted to go on what's going on, because I noticed that there wasn't a lot of support for trades, and the amazing thing is, if you started apprenticeship, I remember back in 2004, 5, 6, 7, the apprenticeship wage for a first year was $5.50 an hour. $5.50 an hour, just take that in perspective. So, yeah, I'm not sure what the rate is now, but I'm sure the rate is around $8 an hour maybe for first year. Could be corrected. You know, if you're watching this and you want to put some comments in, please put it in. But yeah. First year, imagine you're first year and you're living by yourself in a rental house. You're earning that, and you've got all these prices. So while the young people, they're speaking out, mate. And what happens in Melbourne? What happens in Melbourne? No one's ever talked. No one's. You know, the thing that really, I'm spitting chips now. That's why this is it. I'm spitting chips now because everyone sort of does this fakeness about wanting to look after and protect each other. Like this thing about "Are you okay?" It just seems like a symbol. Like they've ticked a box. They've ticked the box and now we move on. Like, what do they do to all the people? Like, you know, rates in Melbourne, the suicide rates are skyrocket for young people. And you've got this whole generation of people that were locked inside that missed those key moments of their life. And the young kids were exposed to like being muzzled. Especially when children have the highest fucking immunity rate. But anyway, let's move on from that rant. You can see I'm a bit, once we get off this my chest for a while. And then I still get told, oh, it was to protect the people. That's why we, well, is everybody protected? Is everybody protected now? Because apparently this is going to go on for 10 to 20 years. Anyway, so I'm looking at total apprentices. So 2004, the total apprenticeships were 350,000 whole of Australia. And 2023 and 2024 was 500,000 and 510,000. Apprentices that were completing that training back in 2024 was 110,000, and 23 and 24 is 200,000 and 210,000. So you can see one of the main things I want to point out here is that government funding is abysmal. Look at this. It's only just gradually crept up. So you can see 210,000 in 2024, 2023, 2022, 200,000, 2021, 190,000, 2020, 190, 2019, 180,000, 2018, 180,000. All those apprentices dropped out for a significant reason. And I guarantee you one of those things was government help and providing them to help them, like some kind of grant to say, hey, we're going to help you out here. So completion rate, 2024 is around 31%. And they're saying 2004 is 31%, and 2024 is 41%. I wouldn't say that's a freaking round of clap. I wouldn't say that. Less than 0.5% of apprentices are completing. So in the trends and insights, increase in apprenticeships. There has been a gradual increase in the number of apprenticeships, especially in the trades and high demand for labour. Government spending, the Australian government continues to reinvest in trade and vocational training, with funding steadily increasing over the years to skills shortages. Trade labour visas. The demand for trade labour has led to the increase of number of temporary work visas, particularly industries facing skill shortages. The completion rate shows a steady trend, reflecting efforts to improve and support the retention of the apprentices. So what happens? What happens when you haven't got people that are trained by the seasoned tradesmen? And there's now some tradeswomen, but I say tradesmen is men and women. So tradesmen, because I'm not going to say tradespersons. So you can see that we shortfall. We're not ensuring that these people finish their apprenticeship. Then what you have is like people that just burnt out post the lockdowns. They just had enough, man. They're tired. Freaking I'm tired. Just tired of it all, you know. Busting the gut and you're going, what am I getting for it? So these people that have been around for a decade, longer than a decade, several decades, and they got all this experience in it. Trade is not something you pick up, you know, within a year. It takes you many years to master it. And then what's the point about how you master it is that you've got masters before you and they keep handing down those skills. That is accompanied by new training and new skills. And this is a constant thing where you develop. And that's what was regarded about Australia, from the educational to the trades, both sides from the universities. We were regarded as one of the highest standards in the world, if not the highest. You look it up. It was there. Now we're fucking abysmal, mate. Abysmal. Look at the quality of houses that's spinning out. Freaking all new builds within 1 year is disgraceful. Anyway, moving on from that. I'm really spitting chips at the moment. Oh my gosh. So here is estimate table of reasons why non-completion of apprenticeships. So the main reasons back in 2024 was the lack of job security, financial pressures, and poor workplace support. In 2008, there was a GFC. Obviously, that wiped out a lot. A lot you can see within the early 2000s was, you know, you just see it actually. Lack of support, financial stress. In 2023, apparently long hours and stress was exhausting. So you're doing all this stress, and what are you getting for it? In 2015 was difficult in finding employer support. So that was employers reluctant to hire or support apprentices due to financial pressure. So this is very significant. So apprentices only get taken on if the company deems it as a beneficial investment. You don't just take it on. Like, it's very rarely do you do it, and only in some big construction sites where the boys get together and they say, no, we want mandatory apprentices because we think about the newer generations and we want to progress that forward. You nearly had to force the employers to take on apprentices. Like the companies never had like a fixed mentality of constantly bringing in. Obviously, you don't want too many apprentices because there's some companies that have got freaking one tradesman and 10 apprentices. And you're going, how are you getting trained, mate? So let's look at like 2019 onwards, workplace conflicts. Apparently, there was better career offers. So there was more secure paying jobs, and that's why they left their apprenticeships. 2020 was the impact shutdowns. And then job security, so it was massive temporary layoffs. And that's why apprentices left. Financial struggles, the burdens for the apprentices had. Mental health issues, massive one. Mental health issues for young people. Related stress and isolation affecting apprentices and mental well-being. This is a huge thing. This just shows just in the tradesman perspective. No one talks about this shit at all. Just like freaking sweep it under the carpet, she'll be right. And there's another thing when I'm talking about onto it now, because the prices are so high and nobody can afford. There's another reason why you bring in so many international workers. It's to lower the rates down, to make it all cheaper. So then you can try and fit within this price category of affordable. I'm not saying bringing people from other countries into this country. I welcome it, but you got to do it the right way. 2020, health and safety risks, still doing the shutdowns. Apparently everybody's at risks, even though most tradesmen are out and about in the fresh air, working hard, so it's good for their body. They're getting sunlight. No. Can't be doing that, mate. So still 2020 limited workplace opportunities. 2023 job market recovery, apparently. So because there was more appealing jobs, everybody was walking away from apprenticeships as well. And then the reducing support again. 2024, ongoing effects from the pandemic. Hope if I'm saying this I'm allowed to say this on this platform. I knew for a long time you couldn't say anything on this platform. So 2024, and there's still skill mismatches. And then on top of that, it's like hard to get the mentality. I mean, the thing about having a person there was an older person. Sometimes you have to pull these younger people into line. They've come out of high school, or some of them dropped out early. They didn't finish high school, and you've got to go, no, mate, you're working to these standards. If I can get going, get moving, mate. And you did a mentoring. Sometimes you're hard on them. Sometimes you were kind. It was a nice balance. They come out of it, mate. And you know what? Majority of them loved you for it. Because they got a good lesson in life. It's like I can't compare because I never went to the government forces, the ones that protect us. I've got other stuff to talk about them, but the actual training I'm talking about, that's good for a lot of people, a lot of young people. They need that stability, the regimency. They need to know what time to wake up and eat and complete tasks. So the key observations about this. Economic events, the global financial crisis GFC in 2008, followed by the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, were significant events that impacted apprenticeships completion rates due to the economic uncertainties, layoffs, and industry shutdowns. Well, I understand the GFC, but I don't understand freaking COVID. As in, one's sort of like granted and one's not. Personal factors are consistent factor in non-completion is financial stress, where apprentices found the wages insufficient to support their personal needs and family obligations. Yeah, I can't, you definitely have to stay home. And then you've got 4 years of your life when you're getting nothing. It's not like you can go out. Like when I did apprenticeship, I was doing labouring because I was intermittent between apprenticeships. And I was earning really good money, like not amazing money, but pretty good money, just being a labourer, easy work. And then I went into it because my mindset was that I was fortunate. My mindset, some other people need this support for this mindset, is that I knew what it was like in the future, what the benefits would be, and I made the sacrifices. But tell you what, it was hard at times, very hard at times. And I personally, I feel like I've got a strong willpower. Some people everybody's different, not everybody's the same. There are workplace issues, problems with unsafe working conditions, lack of mentorship, and poor workplace environments. Here have been ongoing issues causing apprentices to abandon their training. Yeah, it's fucking awful. Career mismatches. Apprentices often leave due to realizing the trade isn't good or fits, or because they receive better job offers or pursue different career paths. Health and safety. The physical nature of many trades often leaves the apprentices leaving due to injury or health-related concerns. And in recent years, the pandemic's mental health impacts have added dropout rates. Yeah, it's horrific what we did to young people. Government employment support, lack of employment commitment, and insufficient government support for apprenticeships have also contributed to non-completion. Well, I think they're one of the main fucking things, mate. Trends over time, the completion rate generally increases on workplace support. Well, it increases because the amount of apprentices has increased. That's why it's increased. Health and safety concerns have emerged more predominantly in recent years. Partly due to the physical demands in certain trades. and more recently COVID. Just one moment, guys. I need to pause this. Just going to go. Okay, back. Thanks for that. Sorry about that. Duty calls. Okay, we're getting back. So we were talking about trends, the data and the graph. What else wanted to? Okay. So that's understanding what's going on with the trades. A bit of an idea why we're in the issue we are. If you lock down the economy, you're going to have issues. If you've got supply issues, you're going to have issues. If you're not training people properly, you're going to have issues. And if you cause them, if you destroy the Australian way of life was being out and about, you're going to have issues. All right. So now I'm progressing on to, what are we at? Hour 34 minutes. Is we still here, still listening? Good on you. Glad to be sharing this with you. Hopefully, this information can enlighten you a bit and bring you to some kind of ease. Because I feel there's not a lot of people that are on point about this stuff. Pegs in the sand, or they just don't know, or unfortunately, they're so busy with their life. It's like unprecedented amount of stress. You got to pay the bills. You got to tend to your family, if you've got a family. You know, you haven't got time. You haven't even got time to look up the freaking night sky, which is one of the most beautiful things to do in Australia. Even with the light pollution, you can still see the stars. On that note, it's a pretty special time of the year, mate. You don't know about. Look at the planetary alignment that's coming up. Planetary alignment that's coming up. Okay. So now I want to know about these visas that are coming in, supposedly skilled visas. Is there any of them that are actually like false? Like, is there any fraud within these visas? And I found out that actually there's actually a trend of fraudulent visas. Now I'm just going to get to the table which was the best. So I think I'm doing this one because the other one had the states in it. But so back in 2000, the estimated number of skilled visas revoked due to fraud was 1,000. And that was from India, UK, and China. 2011, 2,500 visas. These are skilled working visas. So they're saying the economy needs these workers. And this is usually supported by employers, Australian employers. 2011, India, China, Sri Lanka, Philippines, UK. Comprised of these 2,500 fraudulent visas. 2017, 3,800. India, Philippines, China, Sri Lanka, Nepal. 2018, 4,000 fraudulent visas. India, Philippines, China, Sri Lanka, Nepal. 2019, 4,200 visas. India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and China. 2020, 4,500. India, Philippines, China, Sri Lanka. 2021, 4,600. India, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Pakistan. 2022, 4,800. India, Philippines, China, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Pakistan. 2023, 5,000 fraudulent visas. India, Philippines, Sri Lanka, China, Pakistan. 2024, estimated 5,200 fraudulent visas. India, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and China. Now, I want to know what's going on. So I want to know whereabouts is this happening. And the majority of places is actually happening over the east coast. And it's in New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria. But in recent years, it's become West Australia as well. From that as well, I wanted to know I wanted to know which sectors those were. So in this graph is quite good. So I want to know what the industries were most affected. So back in 2000, it was construction and IT, right? It was mostly affected in New South Wales and Victoria. So you got fraudulent visas. What concerns me is construction. I've got one thing about, IT is another. Not hospitality, you know, like, yes, it's a thing to do. And I'm taking away how good hospitality is to do as a job, especially for those ones that work during hard lockdowns. So many people were not praising them for the work they did. The shit they got, man, handed to them. Let's just go recent years. 2018, the industries that were most affected by fraudulent visas was hospitality, construction, IT, and healthcare. Healthcare. That is deeply concerning for me. I feel like construction to a degree is manageable, but healthcare is people. And that was going on a little bit in 2011, but now it's just sprung up in 2018, 2019, again, healthcare, 2020, healthcare, 2021, healthcare, 2022, healthcare, as well as construction, IT, and hospitality, 2023, healthcare, 2024, healthcare. Now, I remember a story getting around that there was a doctor that was fraudulent and wasn't even actually a doctor. That from these third world countries, they just created this false certificate and made this whole profile of this person was actually a qualified doctor. Now, yes, we're not going to jump to conclusions here because there is a lot of highly trained people that are coming to this country, but bloody hell, that is so concerning. Construction, healthcare, IT, and hospitality. Like for me, like hospitality, just, yeah, okay, remove that one. IT, healthcare, and construction. IT, fraud. That's where you get robbed of your money. And there's all these fake phone calls, especially targeting the seniors. Healthcare, that's nurses. Maybe this is, let's see what healthcare is, actually. So construction, historically, construction has been one of the most affected industries due to the fraudulent visa applications. Common fraud involves misrepresented job offers, fake qualifications, and inflated salaries. So fake qualifications, that's the one that freaking scares me, mate. Just, yeah, I can do a job and you haven't got any idea. That gets mostly vetted in this country. IT sector has been impacted by fraudulent claims around qualifications and previous work experience. With the growing demand of IT professionals, there's been cases of applicants falsifying information to gain visas. So what scares me, concerns me, not scares me, but I suppose there's a degree of fear, but it's just like, who is coming into the country? Like, what is the prediction and the outlook when you've got this shit happening? Like, it's not one thing to like say you can't do it, and then you try to do the job, and you may cause harm to a person, an individual, or business, or an entity. But it's more so that if the person's lying to get here, what traits does that person have? There might be a degree of where they're just desperate and they can do the job, so they're lying about it. But yeah, it just changes the way the country is. Hospitality, the sector, particularly in the roles like chefs, waitress, managers, has seen fraud due to the reliance on temporary skilled visa programs, which employers sometimes misuse for cheap labor. Cheap labor. Remember I spoke about that before? This means that locals can't get the jobs. They take advantage of the ones from coming in. Healthcare professionals, including doctors, nurses, mate. Doctors, and there's freaking fraudulent visas. And allied health workers have been involved in fraud cases due to unverified and false qualifications. There you go. There is false freaking doctors now. And there is times where, like, you change up a doctor sometimes, you just go, what's going on here? Especially with overseas trained workers. Engineering professionals have seen some instances of visa fraud, often related to skill assessments or work experience verification. That one's also concerning because that's the building blocks of any construction, or it can be anything from the construction of building construction to IT construction. And that actually, this might relate to all those high rises over the eastern states, and now they're freaking hazard, and people have to leave the building, and they're losing money. Massive fire risks and engineering, the stability of the buildings. This shows in the states which are affected. New South Wales apparently has been historically the hub for skilled migration, especially industries like construction, ET, healthcare. And Sydney, the capital of New South Wales, attracts many skilled migrants, leading to a high number of fraudulent cases. Queensland is a growing demand in construction and hospitality industries and has seen significant levels of fraud. Victoria, Melbourne, as a major economic hub, has also experienced visa fraud, particularly in the construction IT sectors. This state has had high migration numbers, leading to increased scrutiny and investigations into fraud cases. Western Australia, Perth, has been an important centre of the skilled workers, especially in the mining, construction and engineering sectors. Fraud in these industries has been an area of focus. South Australia, because of the relatively small population but high reliance on skilled migration, has also seen fraud. They've obviously stepped up their game to focus on this fraud, but still, I mean, you've got to get to the point where this person gets caught out. How long before that person, and what damage has that person caused? So taking all this into consideration, I thought, okay, there's a lot to digest here now. We're an hour and 46 minutes in. Well done for staying on with me, but taking this all into consideration, I was just going, well, it sounds a bit bleak, but I want to know what's the positive outlook for this country. Because sometimes you can get caught in the bad. So let's talk about positive. So short term, I wanted to know what three: short, medium, and long term. So short term is 2024 to 2026. Post-pandemic recovery. Australia is continuing to recover from COVID-19 pandemic. Wait, hold on a second. I actually changed this and I said, yeah, okay, here we go. Post-pandemic recovery. One minute, I'm just going to check one more thing because I think I did. Yeah, okay, yeah, no, this is the one to read. Okay. Short-term outlook, 2024 to 2026, positive outlook. Post-pandemic recovery. Australia's economy is showing signs of recovery, particularly in the key sectors such as healthcare, IT, construction. Migration of skilled workers remains essential to support economic growth, and international students continue to contribute to the economy. So that means we've just created this industry of students becoming one of our exports. And I have heard and seen through, as I was speaking about before, lowering the standards of education so that we can get more people in so they can complete the courses. And they go out with this certificate. And it's not just like you come here to be higher skilled, it's just you get a little bit higher skilled, but it's more so, yeah, it's just a factory. Government debt and spending, although Australia's government debt has increased significantly due to pandemic-related relief, the government has been able to secure favourable borrowing conditions due to low interest rates. This may lead to short-term economic stability and investment in infrastructure, education, and healthcare. Still, skilled migration integrity. The government's focus on cracking down on visa fraud and implementing stronger compliance checks should result in better quality migration, which will contribute positively to the economy. I think that's a really good thing. Also, low interest rates, but debt to GDP is going up. So, and post the same recovery post pandemic, yeah, we've got a lot to recover from. The negative outlook of 2024 to 2026, next 2 years. Risk of recession, depression, rising government and private debt levels alongside ongoing inflation pressures may lead to economic slowdown. Interest rates are likely to rise in response to inflation, increasing the cost of borrowing for businesses and households. This could result in reduced consumer spending and investment, potentially leading to a recession or even a depression. Skilled migration could suffer as businesses scale back hiring. Crime and social discontent. Economic uncertainty may lead to high levels of social unrest, particularly in areas of inequality where inequality is rising. A growing underclass, increasing homelessness, and higher crime rates could destabilize communities, especially in major urban centers. Remember I showed you about those crime rates going up? Debit strain. So both personal and business debt are at high levels in Australia, and any economic downturn could lead to increased defaults, bankruptcy, and financial hardship. Remember I showing you all those graphs about bankruptcy going up and business sentiment down? Financial hardship, especially in the vulnerable sectors like retail, real estate, and hospitality. They're not even mentioning trades. So many builders have gone insolvent. Demographic and religious trends. Remember, this is all ChatGPT. Immigration and population compositions. The Asian diaspora, particularly from India, China, and Philippines, Vietnam, will continue to increase due to skilled migration programs. This trend will be accompanied by rising immigration from Africa, particularly from countries like South Africa, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe, as people seek opportunities in a stable country. Fertility rates. Australia's fertility rate remains below replacement levels, leading to an aging population. As fertility rates decline and reliance on migration to support the economy and sustain population growth will increase, this will have long-term implications on the labour market. Like I was saying before, for so long we're not promoting large families or having children at all, because the instability and the fear of not being able to pay your mortgage or pay rates or whatever, or be able to support the child. Religious composition. Australia's religious makeup is becoming more diverse. Historically a predominantly Christian nation, immigration from predominantly Hindu, Muslim, and Buddhist countries will change this dynamic. The Christian population will continue to decline in proportion to other religions as migration population increases. I'll show you a graph on that. Midterm outlook 2026 to 2030. Positive outlook. Economic recovery or stagnation. So stagnation means it's just neutral. It's not doing good. It's not going bad. It's just ticking along. Japan was in stagnation for a long time. If Australia can effectively manage its government debt and address inflation pressures, it may experience a period of stable and most modest growth. The focus on renewable energy technology and education could position the economy for future growth, particularly if global trade conditions improve. And that's if, so they're focusing so much on renewable energy. It's dodgy. Government fiscal discipline. The government will likely implement more disciplined fiscal policies, spending policies, to manage debt. Reforms in taxation, social welfare programs, and government spending could provide fiscal stability and reduce the risks of deeper recession. Skill migration benefits. As sectors like healthcare, engineering, and technology continue to expand, Australia may see a positive return on investment in skill migration, particularly in high demand fields, renewable energy, AI. So they're saying like, okay, apparently we're bringing in all these really, really skilled people. And that's one of the best things you can do about migration is you bring in people that have skills from other countries that we've never been able to experience here. That's one of the best things you can do about migration, skill migration, is just automatically bringing in experience. And then once you do that, once you bring this experience, then Australians are able to take on the task, like some of these big offshore jobs. There was a lot of people that were actually brought in other countries for the high level roles because we didn't have the people with that experience because we'd never done it in our country before. Negative outlook, debit crisis, and austerity. If Australia fails to manage its debt efficiently, a future debit crisis may arise. Increased borrowing costs and potentially downgrade its credit ratings could lead to a higher government spending on debt servicing, so servicing the loan, resulting in austerity measures. This could cut into essentially social services, welfare programs, and government infrastructure projects. So what it's saying there is it's going to completely just cut them all back, which I think they should be doing now, which is giving out welfare willy-willy. And that's one thing I'm just going to get onto right now. Like, why is there so much money being printed right now and so much government spending instead of paying off debt into all these projects around Australia? Well, one reason is because we've brought all these people in, so now we need to support the infrastructure, so that's somewhere to live, but also not just, you can't just throw something up. You need transportation, you need water, sewage, electricity, food. The other side of it is that by giving all this money out to all these people from the government, so the actual government sector is the main driver at the moment. The private sector is fucked. By doing that, it's a form of stimulation. So really what we're doing is a massive stimulation, just like we were during the lockdowns. And so there's a positive part about that, is you're stimulating the economy. The bad side of it is that money remaining in the economy? What's it being spent on? And more so, are you doing it at the expense of the other people that are trying to excel in life because they're not getting any of this handout? Like the last stimulus package, you remember that was years ago. I think it was like 2006 or something like that. And there was like $1,000 given to everybody, and that was like equal. Everybody gets $1,000. It's all equal. So economic inequality and crime. A growing wealth divide and economic stagnation could exacerbate crime rates, especially in unfunded urban areas where poverty and unemployment are concentrated. Organized crime and violent crime could rise, destabilizing regions and affecting the quality of life. I feel like that's happening already. Every time you go to major hubs now, or even like the small little hubs, the amount of homeless people or beggars, social unrest, and what's more importantly, that I have debates with people and they're telling me they want to cut funding with mental health. That's a crazy line to be balancing on. Social unrest. Economic challenges combined with rising crime rates, inequality, and unemployment could lead to more social unrest. Labour strikes, protests, and tensions between different demographic groups could undermine national stability. Demographic and religious trends. Population composition shifts. By 2030, Australia's demographic makeup will become more increasingly diverse, with Asian and African migrants representing a large proportion of the population. Yeah, that's yeah, it's a bit. It is what it is. It is what it is. For so long, we've just, the whites have opted not to have children. That's what's going to happen, and it's sad. It really is sad. The demographic shift will affect cultural norms, languages, and social values. Well, that explains for itself. You can't figure that out. You come to Australia because it's so good for a reason. So it could either get better or it could get worse, because all these these social values and cultural norms are brought from another country, and you don't want to integrate into the values of the country. You just want to live your way of life in this country that you lived in the other country you left that was shit because of the way you were living your life. Religious trends. Christianity will continue to decline. Pretty much the religion that built this country will continue to decline as the dominant religion, with Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism becoming more prominent due to migration from Muslim-majority countries like Indonesia and Pakistan. Secularism is likely to increase as younger generations less inclined towards organized religion. So what also concerns me is that you have all these subgroups, and that's not what you want to do. You want to have everybody to be together, but because then you start teaching different ways of life, not the life that we enjoy here, the freedom of it. Well, it was pretty freedom up until the last few years. Youthful population from Africa and Asia. Migration from regions with higher birth rates such as Africa and parts of Asia will lead to more youthful population. These younger migrants will fill key gaps in the workforce, but may also contribute to growing tensions over cultural integration. Because there's that point with young people, male and female, where you've really got to set up a platform for them, because they might be molded in a certain way, and you got to change that very quickly from positive influence, or it can go bad really quickly, really quickly. And you can see that in UK with knife crime, and also the other things that are going on, forcing themselves on people. Long-term outlook, 2030 to 2040, positive outlook, renewable energy and technologies leadership. Australia could emerge as a leading global leader in renewable energy, sustainability, and advanced technology sectors. Just have a drink. Attracting more skilled migration. If the government adopts progressive policies in these areas, Australia could experience a booming high-tech economy. So they're hoping, and I hope as well, it's going to be some kind of boom we had during the minerals boom. But I'll show you a reason why that might not be the case. Social integration and prosperity. Over time, the successful integration of migrants could lead to a more multicultural society, which is what I hope. It's great to have many great influences coming together. Multicultural society fosters creation, innovation, and social cohesion. A balanced and sustainable population supported by skilled migration could help Australians continue to grow economically. Demographic sustainability via migration. With lower fertility rates among the native-born population, Australia will increasingly rely on migration to sustain its workforce. Now, there's another way to do that, and China did that. You don't really need to bring in people all the time. You can just bring in all information, because then you have your GDP. So what I mean by that is that you have an aging workforce, and you replace the aging workforce with automation. You train up the existing workforce to integrate with the automation, and that way you can sustain GDP or excel. High-skilled migrants, particularly from countries like India, China, and African nations. I don't know how they're high-skilled from all these, but there is some high-skilled, but I don't know how it's all high-skilled migrants, but I'm going to have faith in it. That's the way it's going to happen. It will help alleviate the economic burden of aging population. And this is a clear fact. It's a clear fact. We don't do this. Yeah, screwed. Negative outlook, recession, depression. If Australia's government and business, this is for 2030 to 2040. Negative outlook, recession, depression. If Australia's government and business cannot manage debt and spending sustainability. So, let me say that again. If Australia's government and businesses cannot manage debt and spending sustainably, a long-term recession or even depression could occur, severely impacting the nation's economic stability and job market. High levels of national and personal debt combined with rising inflation could stagnate the economy. Now, remember I showed you those graphs of personal debt going up? Social fragmentation of cultural conflict and cultural conflict. Fragmentation means splitting. If economic inequality and unemployment rise, there may be an increase in social fragmentations. Conflicts between different ethnic and religious groups could arise, leading to radical tensions and a divide socially. Radicalization could also become a concern as disenfranchised groups seek alternative ways to voice their frustrations. So what we always want to do is voice your frustration with words, and don't be angry with your words. Try and remove your emotions. Obviously the emotions are there. That's the best way to conduct a debate, and you must be able to do that as well. As soon as you got any type of a protest, it's just not right. It's not good. Sometimes what those protests progress to, though, is when you're not given the platform to voice it. The government dysfunction. Long-term debt and financial instability could lead to government dysfunction, where political gridlock prevents necessary reforms and actions to address the economy and public welfare. This could undermine national confidence and leadership and institutions. So what that means is that too much bureaucracy, whereas you have the governments might continue to split because the people feel like they're not getting represented properly, and then no one can agree on anything and nothing gets passed. And the necessary things to happen, and that's where sometimes a dictatorship actually works quite well. One leader, he makes the choices, which they've got in America. Demographic and religious trends. Majority of children born to migrants by 2040, the majority of children were born in Australia are likely to come from migrant communities, particularly those in Asian African backgrounds. The demographic shift will influence national policies on education, integration, and public services. Now, I'll finish all three of these and talk about that. Religious diversity. Australia will continue to shift towards religious pluralism. Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism are likely to become more prominent, while Christianity continues to decline. The number of agnostic and atheists will likely increase, especially among younger Australians. Fertility rate and aging population. Australians' fertility rate will remain below replacement levels, meaning that the nation will rely heavily on migration to meet its demographic and labour needs. A larger proportion of the population will be over 65, requiring continued investment in healthcare and aged care. So you need more money to support it. But what's the only solution they suggest here is just bringing more people in. So what I have about here is that you really got to start getting this mindset, everyone, that you're going to be living in a different country pretty soon. A very different country. And it's just the way it is. You've got to accept it, because I don't see any major shift or change within the existing population to breed more, and I don't see any policies from the government to do major support about repopulation. So it's a guaranteed. It's literally guaranteed. Buckle up, mate. Here it comes. There's only a couple of first world countries around the world that actually are pro replacement, as in like pro children. So here's a table. It's quite a good table. I asked it to be in a table form, so I'll leave that there for a second. You can pause there if you want to look at it again. So this is the conclusion from all that. Australia faces a complex future over the next 20 years with significant opportunities for growth driven by migration, technological innovation, and infrastructure development. However, the risks posed by economic instability, high debt, crime, and social fragmentation should not be underestimated. The government must balance fiscal discipline with investment in key sectors and social cohesion to ensure a stable, prosperous future. They better pull their pants up, mate, do their shoes up and get to fucking work. So, mate, just yeah. That's why I'm getting back to just with what you hope for the best and you hope that, you know, all this will happen, but the examples which you see already, my trust in that, how that will be actioned, is really low, and it's what forces me not want to be here anymore. Because it's not like when you're in a third world country, right? And the regulations there are so low, you can do whatever you want. So it's like a different type of living. But when you come here, you got so many red tapes from insurances and laws to adhere to. It's a different game. So now I wanted, from that point there, I just wanted to know what was the actual the religion, because I want to know about the shift, because I know about migration shift. So I want to go, because that, you know, when you know about who's migrating to the country, you get an idea of what the country is going to be like from, if you're lucky enough to travel to those countries. So here's an estimate of religions breakdown in Australia from 1971 to 2022, because they do this every 4 years, I believe, the census. Did I ask for a better one? Let's just look at this first one. So in 1971, 88% of Australians were Christian, 13.5 million. Islam was below 1%, Hinduism was below 1%, Buddhism was below 1%, Judaism was below 1%, other religions were below 1%, no religion was below 1%. The total population in 1987 was 13.7 million. So here is just, the country was built by Christians. It's a pretty good country. And let's just jump all the way to 2021. So now Christianity is only 43%, 24 million. Two point 7% is Islam, 2.4% is Hinduism, Buddhism is 2.5%, Judaism less than 1%, other religions is 3.5%, and no religion is 39%. So this is a massive shift since 2021 of no religion. 2021 was 16%, no religion in 2006, 18%, 2011, 22%, 2016, 30%, and 2021, 39%. Now this is several reasons why this happened. I think there's just a disdain for Christianity and what's going on in that order. It's some pretty bad shit, but if you do a comparisons about some of the religions out there, I mean, there's definitely issues in other religions. I think Christianity is probably a better one than Catholic, but that's not hating on the Catholic people. It's just what goes on in that religion, the bad stuff. And then you can see like the shift of, because usually Orthodox Islam and some progressive Islam, they have a certain way of living. Hinduism, Buddhism is like sort of neutral, but I think I actually really do enjoy Buddhism. Christianity, Buddhism is sort of my two things I like, or pacifist. But Hinduism concerns me a little. I've got nothing against the Hindus, but what concerns me about it is that within their religion, unless I'm mistaken, is that if you're born poor or broke, let's just say broke instead of poor, if you're born broke, you should never be helped to get out of being broke. And that's what Australia's all about. It's about coming to this country and then you can have nothing and you can build wealth. That's the best part about this country. So here's just the trends. I've just taken you through the trends. So that point there, I just was curious about. Just curious about who was employed within these religions. Because obviously from China you would have either no religion or you would be a Buddhist. Very, very small amounts of Christianity. And a lot of European countries would be Christianity. And then all the other ones would be Islamic. So I'm just curious about, because remember there was that welfare and unemployed. So is there a correlation to being employed and not employed? So I wanted to see the not employed. Which it didn't really give me. But this graph shows you about who's employed within each sector. And then it also gives you assumptions. And I'll give you the key insights of what I see regarding, and this really shapes, you know, how I'm talking about, you got to get used to the country's changing. This is how it shapes it. And there's a lot of African countries and Asian countries that are Islamic. So, and they're most likely to be Orthodox. So here's the key points. Christians. Christians continue to have a dominant presence in the labour force. Both men and women have a relatively high employment, with unemployment rates generally low compared to other groups. Now, this is just saying that they need to be employed. They do work, but this also shows that there's a probability they're on high financial stress and they can't have children. They still choose to work because they want to have a good life. Islam, although employment is rising for both men and women, unemployment rates for women remain high compared to men in this group. So there'd be a shift. Hinduism, employed men have generally outpaced employed women, but the trend of growing female workforce participation in recent years shows improvement. Buddhism, similar to Hinduism, male employment is consistently higher than female employment, though female unemployment has decreased over time. Druidism, both Jewish women and men show relatively high unemployment, so they're more employed, and they pursue high educated professional sectors. See, the Jews are doing it right, and the Christians aren't. They tend to have big families as well. Other religions include various groups with generally higher male unemployment. The other religions usually have general higher male employment and lower male participation. Though over time the male unemployment rates have decreased. And the no religion ones, so this could be atheists or they just choose to have no religion at all. This is an interesting one to branch on. No religion, both men and women in this group show highest employment rates, with unemployment being low than other religion groups. So showing that people that just they're conducting themselves within the country. They have no, they're saying, well, that maybe they just don't want to say it, but they're saying they have no religion. They conduct themselves in a certain way, and does not have a religion affect the way they conduct themselves, as in, do they want to or not want to have children? And also their values, what are their values aligned to? What was interesting about the no religion people was that they had one of the highest percentage of people that didn't want to take the injection. They were the ones that were more advocates of, which is surprised. You think like there was a percentage here, but there's more percentage in the no religion. So that really says a lot, mate. There is a decent positivity about no religion. So I want to see what in religions, what's the birth rates, non-birth rates for the last 50 years. So 1971, the Christianity birth rate is 2.5%, which is good. That's 1.5% above, so that's 2.5 children. Islam birth rate was 2, Hinduism 1.8, Buddhism 1.5, Judaism 2.1, other religions 1.9, no religion was 2.1. 2021, Christianity is just steadily declined for some reason. Christians just stop having children. 2021 at 1.3, so they're no longer replacing themselves. Islam birth rate is at 3.1. So every Islam family is having, every Islam, that's 3 children, 3-to-1 ratio. Same with Hinduism's, Hindus, 3-to-1. Buddhism's, they're also declining. Jews, they're declining, the same as Christians. Other religions, though, is at 2.6, and no religions at 1.2. So this is a concerning that the no religions are decreasing, whereas the no religions are the ones most likely to be employed. So they're not replacing themselves. Yeah, you can see the shift. This is going to be a shift. Plus that with all the people that are coming from countries. So you haven't got replacement, and then you got the countries that are coming from certain seculars, which are more predominantly Islamic or Hindus. Very, very small portion of Christians and everything else. It's going to be a massive shift in this country. This is showing the birth rates, but I've just taken you through that. And this is the observations. Secularizations, the birth rate for the non-religious population has been steadily decreasing, aligning with broader trends in secular societies where people tend to have fewer children. So the culture has been lost about family culture is gone, and it could be said that you're more focusing on yourself, and you're forgetting what is the true meaning of life. You're going to die alone. No one's going to remember you. Migrant influenced religions with higher migration rates, such as Islam and Hinduism, tend to have higher birth rates, particularly among younger populations. Declining fertility in Christianity. So this is an issue. This is not an issue. It's a positive thing because you got replacement, but it's not a positive thing if certain seculars, if religions do not want to integrate in certain ways that the country is. And once you have all these other ones that decrease in value, then their way of life is going to increase, and that could be for the good or the bad. And that's where it shows the outlook, where unless you have integration, you're going to have seculation. You're going to circulate. Yeah. The declining fertility in Christianity, Christians families, especially among Anglo-Saxon populations, have been a significant decline in birth rates, reflecting broader societal shifts, including the delay in marriage and choice of fewer children, socioeconomic factors. There's so much to go on that with, though. But like, it's the whole mindset of the majority of that Australian population has been beaten and for over so many years told that they're, from my own personal experience, that not welcome in this country. I I'm the cause of everything bad in this country. So there's no positivity at all. For so many years, there's never been any positivity towards this. And then it's said that in the universities, you get the young people, and this, yeah, I would say that there is a portion of very intelligent people that go to university are just brainwashed into a certain way because that's the right place to do it in universities. And that's, yeah. So based on the trends in immigration, fertility rates and religious composition in Australia over the past several decades, we can make some projections for the next 50 years. These predictions consider key factors like immigration, birth rates, secularization, cultural diversity, and policy influences. However, please note that these predictions are speculative and rely on a number of assumptions about future demographic patterns. Assumptions for the next 50 years. Immigration. Australia's immigration will continue to be a major driver of demographic change, especially with increased migration from Asia, Middle East, and Africa. Immigration policies could shift, but it's likely that skilled and family-based migration will continue to grow. Fertility rates. Australia's fertility rate will likely remain low, below replacement level for the most religious groups except those with higher migration rates, Islam and Hinduism. Secularization, the trend towards secularization, with increasing number of people identifying as having no religion, is expected to continue contributing to low birth rates. Religious shifts. Religious groups that have higher fertility rates like Islam and Hinduism will likely grow in proportion, while Christianity may continue to decline in both numbers and influence due to low birth rates. So this is what I requested for like a 2025 to 2075, and it just shows you that Christianity would drop by 2075 down to 24%, from 44% in 2025. Islam will be at 9% then, Hinduism at 5%, Buddhism at 3%, Judaism 0.7%, other religions 4%, no religion 53%. Christianity birth rate at 2075 would be at 1%. Islam will be 3.6%, Hinduism would be 3.4%, Buddhism 1.2%, Judaism 1.3%, no religion 0.1%. And I just was interested about what's the top countries in the world. China, no religion, is at 70%, Christianity is at 5%, Islam's at 2%, Hinduism, Buddhism is 18%, more than Christianity. India, Hinduism is the most, USA is no religion and Christianity, Indonesia is Islam, Pakistan, Islam, Nigeria, Islam and Christianity, Brazil, Christianity, Russia, Christianity, Mexico, Christianity, Japan, Buddhism, Germany, Christianity, with Islam on the rise and no religion. United Kingdom, Christianity, Islam on the rise and no religion. France is 50% Christian now, 10% Islam, 29% no religion. Turkey is 95% Christianity. That must be a mistake. I thought that was an Islam country, but there you go. Turkey's Christianity. Italy, 80% still Christian at the moment. Egypt, majority Islamic. South Africa, apparently majority 80% Christian. South Korea, Christian and Buddhism. Canada, Christian and non-religion. Thailand, Christianity. I thought Thailand was more Buddhism than Christianity. Australia, there's us. This is just graphs I've expanded on, so you can have a gander or just scroll down quickly, slowly. So what are we in now? 2 hours and 26 minutes. So I've got a little bit more to go. I think I'm just going to finish this off. So I think it's good to get all this off my chest, and it's also nice for me to have a perspective when I go through it all. So this is when I was curious about vaccinations and what religions opposed it from the surveys that completed. No religion was at 20 to 25% opposed it. Christianity was 15-20%. Islam was at 10 to 15%. Hinduism at 5-10. Buddhism was 5 to 8%. Judaism was at 5%. Other religions were 5 to 10%. So the no religion was the ones that were mostly against the forced vaccination, closely followed by Christianity. Destiny says like your liberty is within these two groups, but still, like, it's still pretty poor, like from a percentage. From a percentage, like this is a graph also showing the world of top 30 countries. The majority of people were all for it from what they surveyed. So like 80% of people wanted to shut down the whole world. They were that scared. Everyone was so scared they were going to die. They just shut down the whole world. It was can't believe it. Can't believe it. So then from that point there, I was just curious. I'm like, okay, I'm sort of aware where everybody's mindset is without health implications. I was curious about the positive and negative aspects of Australian mandatory voting. And this is the positive aspects about it. Increased voter turnout. Mandatory voter leads to consistently high vote turnout. Of course it does. It often exceeds 90%. Enhanced political legitimacy. High turnouts boost the legitimacy of elected governments because you've only got, what can you choose? So you've chosen one, like you're held accountable, broad representation. The system forces all demographics, including those who may be apathetic or disengaged, to participate, ensuring that all views are represented in the voting process. So I actually am all for that. There may be some groups that don't condone everybody voting. So we go, no, you must vote. So we give them civil liberties. Civic responsibility encourages a cultural and civic duty, promoting the idea that voting is fundamentally responsibility of the citizenship. It can foster greater political awareness. I agree with that. Prevents voter suppression. Unlike voluntary voting systems, mandatory voting helps prevent demographic groups, for example, lower income minority groups, from being underrepresented in elections. Government accountability. With nearly every eligible voter participating, governments are more likely to make decisions that cater to the broad array of population rather than just the most active voters. Yeah, I agree with that. This is the negative aspects. This is good. I like this. It's like a back and forth. It gives you a really good perspective. I'm going to enjoy the summary of this one. So, the negative aspects of compulsory voting. Compulsory participation. Critics argue that mandatory voting infringes on individual freedom, forcing citizens to vote even if they are disinterested, uninformed, or opposed to all candidates. So that's the main thing, is that there is definitely, and I agree with this, is that there's a lot of uninformed people. And then at times that the people that they're there, you don't want to vote for them, but you have to vote, so you're just forced to vote for the two evils. And what they don't talk about is that the amount of money that is donated to these political parties. So if you're trying to be a party, it's a wonder there's never been like a donation cap, so that if you're an individual, you can run for parliament. Uninformed voting. Some argue that mandatory voting can lead to uninformed or disengaged people casting votes out of obligation rather than genuine interest or knowledge. So in Australia, if you don't vote, you get fined. Spoiled ballots. In response to mandatory voting, some individuals might submit blank or intentionally spoiled ballots as a form of protest due to the lack of interest in the candidates. It's the only protest you can do. It's either that or get a fine. Increase government burden. The administrative burden increases as the government needs to manage compliance, including fines and tracking of those who fail to vote. This can be a resource intensive, so it's even more cost. They spend a lot of money when they're doing these freaking campaigns. Voter disengagement. While mandatory voting forces individuals to vote, it doesn't necessarily lead to greater engagement or interest in politics. People may still feel disconnected from the political process. Potential for low quality votes. Some people may vote randomly or without consideration. So this is when you haven't ever done a polling booth. Or it's interesting if you're overseas, come and see what a vote is like in Australia. You just get swarmed by these people. And people just don't know what to do, and they just on the day, they don't even research the policies. Now, on the day, just take these pamphlets and go, oh yeah. So this can lead to lower quality democratic outcomes. Impact on political parties. Political parties may end up focusing more on get the vote. So what they're saying there is they're just saying and doing everything they can to get the vote, just to keep them employed, but when they come to office, they don't actually do it. Yeah. There's been quite a bit of disdain with the Australian political representatives. Summary. I don't think we need to go for the summary. The conclusion. Mandatory voting in Australia has contributed to a high level of political participation and broad representation in the electoral process. However, it also presents challenges regarding voter freedom, the quality of voting, and the potential disengagement. The trade-offs between the positive and negative aspects ultimately reflects differing perspectives on civic duty and the role of government in regulating voting. Yep, it's good to be aware. So I want to know, because we all know now, 2.5 hours in, we all know now there's progressing a divide from those graphs I showed you at the very beginning of wealth, and that creates different classes and division. So I want to know more about that. The rising cost of living and soaring property prices in Australia and many other parts of the world are contributing to an increasing division between economic classes, particularly between wealthy and the lower classes. This growing divide is leading to several potential outcomes of long-term trends that could exacerbate inequality. Here's a deeper look at the issue, broken down to key points. There's quite a bit here. Might just go look at the beginning. I might just go to the key points. Skyrocketing property prices. These are contributing factors to the divide. This is property prices for the middle class dilemma. Skyrocketing property prices, generational wealth gap, renting and owing, cost of living increases, inflation in essentials, unequal impact on income levels, stagnant wages, job insecurity, unemployment, precarious unemployment, technological displacement, wealth concentration, asset ownership, increased wealth concentration, limited asset ownership among the middle class, potential consequences and outlook, increased social division, political and social tensions, impact of mental health and well-being, barrier to social mobility, housing crisis and affordability. So the conclusion, while mandatory voting, social services and progressive taxation might reduce some of the inequalities, the combination of unattainable property prices, rising cost of living, and stagnant wages is likely to exacerbate the divide between wealth elite and the middle and lower classes in Australia. In the short term, this could lead to growing social unrest and polarisation of society, and the polarisation of society. So polarisation means a split, or several splits. In short term, this could lead to a growing unrest, social unrest and polarization of society. In the mid-term, we might see policies aimed at addressing this gap, such as tax reform, housing reforms, and efforts to increase job security. Over long term, however, if these issues are not addressed, Australia could face a more deeply divided society where wealth and opportunities are increasingly concentrated in the hands of a few. So this is a possibility. It's a bit grim. Short term, 1 to 5 years, increased social unrest and protest, growing political polarization, higher level of mental health issues among middle class individuals. Mid-term, 5 to 10 years, policies addressing housing affordability, income inequality, rising calls for progressive taxation of wealth redistribution. Long term, so that was mid-term, 5 to 10 years. This is now long term, 10 years and plus. Possible collapse of social mobility, a more fragmented society with limited social cohesion. So it's a complete divide, social divide. Continued concentration of wealth in the hands of the elite. So from that, so it says this growing divide between classes could reshape Australia's social fabric, and the government's response will play a pivotal role in either migrating or amplifying the effects of these economic pressures. So I just wanted a bit of a breakdown the ownership in 2023. So domestic homeowners, home occupiers, the middle class to high income owns 65 to 70%, which is not too bad. The middle class are in on that. Still gives you the possibility of becoming like wealthy. Domestic investors, rentals, 18 to 22% is high income. But see, these are the people that are getting multiple properties are only the high income earners. Foreign owners, foreign buyers is 5 to 10% now. 5 to 10%, you're allowed to just own property in this country. And these are the high net worth. These are really, really wealthy people. Corporate ownership, 5 to 8% now. Foreign investment in rental properties, 2.4%. Government housing is only 3 to 4%. That's for low income subsidization. So it's really saying like the low income people have got nothing. They rely solely on the government to support them or to rent from the investors. But the problem is the rental price is just going nuts because there's scarceability. They're scarce. There's nothing available. And that's why there's so many homeless people out in the streets and stress and crime. The major reason why the crime's going up. And also on that, then you need to have welfare. Now this could be just people, because I've heard cases of like not just the locals, the people that are citizens, but also like people that come here on visas and now they need healthcare, they need support. I don't need to go for the explanations. But it's probably good to know about the foreign owners. Country origin, China is the major source of foreign investments. So Chinese mass investors. So from what I've heard is that Chinese are coming here on student visas and they're just buying up property. So just progressing through now. Additional insights regarding rising foreign ownership, wealth inequality. No, we don't need to read that. No, I pretty much told you what the conclusion is. I asked for more of a breakdown into those classes. So just an idea, low to income owners is below 60,000. Middle income is 60,000 to 120,000. High income earners are 120,000 plus annually. I think that's outdated now. 120,000. What do you freaking get for that? How do you pay a loan? And 120,000 a year. That's before tax. How can you be? That's not right. That's not right at all. Anyway, progressing on. So you got an idea of who owns the property. Just going more into the owners. Right, so low income owners, primary home ownership is 20 to 25%. Middle income owners is 30 to 40%. High income is 35 to 40%. And foreign is low. So middle to high income own most of the primary home ownership. But the investment properties is mainly made up of high income and a little bit of the middle income and next to no lower income. And that, well, we can see, obviously, we can figure that one out. The middle class and definitely the lower classes are struggling because the middle class has just got one house, so they're just living in that, and the housing interest rates are going up. And they're struggling, whereas high income earners have got additional property. So when the property goes up, they're also paying off their investment. Okay, progressing down. Don't need it. We know what it is. I've just pretty much told you what it is. This is more about foreign ownership. Key insights, conclusion, yep. So then I was, where are we at? 2 hours and 44 minutes. Wow. Nearly there. So then I was curious about the workforce. What percentage of the workforce has more than one job? So apparently in 2023, 4.3% of Australian percentage population has more than one job. And I thought that would be much higher. So I asked them, like, yeah, I didn't need more of a break. I was curious about more breakdown, but I don't need it. If only 4.3% of the population has got one more job, but obviously it's still a lot of people. So yeah, still a lot of people, but it's not as many people as I thought it would be. So yeah, so taking all that consideration for myself, even though that ChatGPT gave me a summarize, I felt they didn't take into consideration that there has been an unprecedented reduction of any type of business startups and new technology in Australia. Like for me personally, there's no support from even the banks aren't giving out business loans anymore. They're very reluctant to give out business loans because so startups are just not doing it in this country. And on top of that, there's too many regulations. So it's too expensive for a startup to operate. So then I was asking, well, how can you have a positive outlook for the economy if the only growth is from government jobs only? When I was talking about how the government jobs are the stimulus and the majority of jobs at the moment for the job growth apparently. And that's why they've got such a low unemployment, is from the vast amount of government jobs. And this is why they can't build houses, because everybody's going, fuck, it's so hard to survive. I'm going to go do one of these government jobs to make more. I'm just going to read the beginning and then key points and then go to conclusion. The concern about reduction in business startups and new technology innovations is valid, particularly in the context of changing economic landscapes where government jobs are becoming a more significant part of the employment. However, there are several angles to consider when evaluating the potential impact on the economy and why it might not necessarily be negative in the short, mid, and long term. This is interesting. Nearly talking for 3 hours. For throat starting to get dry. Okay, the positive aspects of the economy despite declining startups and innovation. Stabilization of employment through government jobs. Yeah, okay, so you keep the workforce employed and stimulated. Public sector growth. Yeah, I don't know, like, yeah, it's good to have public sector growth, but if that's the only growth, how's that positive? Government-funded innovation. Okay, that is positive. Public sector innovation, while private sector innovation may be slowing, the government can play an instrumental role in fostering new technologies, especially in critical sectors like health, renewable energy. They really want to bang on about renewable energy, cybersecurity and defense. Yeah, I thought there'd be better things to focus on. Governments may direct funding into research and developments, R&D, making strategic investments in innovation even when private business activity is reduced. So R&D, research and development, so a private company can go on and see that there's grants within certain things and take that money to help as a startup, which is the positive thing. Strategic partnership. So collaborate with universities and private companies and research institutes. But that's a positive thing if the money's being used properly. What has been had is that there is not enough bureaucracy, or there is too much, and it's not being met. It's not being monitored for where the money goes, and a lot of times that it's just the money's not being issued properly. And this is why it's always good to have public startup, because the public is responsible, and if the public fails, that's the way it is. And just let the government focus solely on government, such as reducing business tax for startups. That would make development. Reduce income tax, personal income tax. That would make development. Put out, build better infrastructure. That would do development. Yeah, now it's saying about the positive side is public infrastructure projects. So that's what I was just talking about. But the only problem is that they've done them all at once at the moment because they're trying to stimulate the economy. So there's nobody building the freaking houses. And then now they're saying investment in human capital. So prioritize education, training on skill programs. Yeah, don't see a whole lot of that, mate. And that's one thing that I really would like to focus on. But as long as you got the universities lowering the standards, how are you ever going to get forward? What could be said is, though, that the government is creating a stability for these people because they have a constant income. So then from that, they can stabilize the economy. The problem is that the people that aren't working for the government are the ones providing that money, because usually if you're a high income worker, you go to the private sector, you don't go to the public sector. So you're not benefiting at all from this because you still pay your rates. Everything you do, you pay, and it's not benefiting you at all. There's only some areas where it benefits you, but the majority it doesn't. So, and usually, not all the time, but majority of the time, I would say that the high income earners are the ones that benefit the country. They're the ones that are more willing to go out of their way to, because they have a desire to build something, innovate. Yeah. So it's just pretty much summarizing that all this money invested into the people is going to do great things. But the problem is if you don't hold people accountable, and this is the thing, if you just give out money and you don't make people work for it, they're just going to do the bare minimum. It's like giving out welfare payments. If you don't hold them accountable, they just keep claiming it if you make it too easy. This is interesting challenges to consider. Over-reliance on government jobs, too much reliance on government jobs for the economic stability could hinder private sector growth. That's what I was talking about. And entrepreneurship. This can lead to a lack of innovation in some sectors, and private businesses typically drive completion and technology progress. So yeah, exactly what I was saying. You're just hindering everything, and majority of the time people just leave because the tax are too high, and it's too hard to do anything. Potential for stagnation, a reduction in number of startups and slowdown in new technology innovation can result in less dynamic economy when new solutions to global challenges such as climate change, healthcare, and digital transformation are slower to emerge. Long-term economic growth risks. If innovation and private business creation do not recover in the medium term, the long-term growth prospects of the economy could be in jeopardy. With new technologies, economies may become less competitive internationally, and workforce may find fewer high-paying, high-skilled jobs in the emerging industries. So everyone that's worth their grain of salt will just leave the country. What's the point of being here? And this shows the positive aspects and negative aspects in a nice table. I won't go through that because I've just done it already. The conclusion is, while the reduction of business startups and slower technologies innovation are concerning in the medium to long term, the growth of government jobs in the public sector services can have positive impacts, especially in the short term, by stabilizing the economy, providing essential services, and ensuring a degree of social and economic stability. However, for long-term economic health, a balanced approach that encourages both government employment and private sector innovation will be critical. And a good way to reference how well the economy does is to look at the bonds, the yearly bonds. Tells you a lot of like sentiments. So I was curious that I want to try and get through this one, and we're nearly there, nearly at the end of it. Nearly at the end of it. Hang in there for another 15 minutes, guys. Do you predict? So I was asking, like, if we're not producing, how can economy strengthen? The question of whether Australia will strengthen economically despite the current trends of decreased manufacturing output, slower technological innovations, and a reliance on sectors like government employment and services is complex. It involves both short-term and long-term considerations. Here's an analyst of the factors that will influence Australia's economic strength in the future, considering its reliance on sectors beyond production. So, key economic drivers in Australia's natural resources. So you remember I was talking about that at the very beginning? Yeah, we've got all these resources, but if you're not getting any freaking money from it, you're just giving it away for free. They're gonna run out sometime, or maybe someone else in the world gives them a cheaper price. Agriculture and energy. So, but this is like, we're messing a lot with our agricultural sector, and on top of that, our energy sector, they're saying, "Oh, let's go all green, all green, all green." It's so expensive. Meanwhile, these other countries getting cheap, where we've got all this gas and coal and oil. Why not have cheap power? Then we can have cheap innovation, and then progress, and then become smarter and innovate to a technology beyond solar panels and wind turbines, where there's so much waste. I guarantee you the waste that's going to be brought up about what do we do with all these solar panels that are no longer working. They're saying the service sectors, healthcare, that's an export. It's become a hub. Yeah, of course it's been a hub, because, you know, there's one side of it is that you do come and get a higher degree of learning, but the other side of it is you just come here to get the easy degree. And tourism. Yeah, tourism's still a good one. But I wouldn't say that contributes to like export. How's tourism export? You come the demographic. You come to Australia for a certain reason, and the demographics changing. Trade, global relationships. China, ties with China. Are we going to continue to support that? I like the Chinese. We've got to have support there. Maybe that's why we're bringing so many people in the country, to continue to have our trading relationship with them. And also our free trade agreements. We try to open these up with certain countries so it reduces the amount of tax we pay. Immigration, yeah, let's bolster the country. These are the things that say positive export for the country. You just immigrate here for a better better way of life. But what happens if it's not a better way of life? What happens if the crime skyrockets? You see what happened in the UK? People don't want to be there anymore because of the crime. Innovate, yeah, if we can grow our tech. But yeah, I'm hopeful. Hopefully we could do that. I'm not really big into, like, I appreciate it because I like, I don't like dirty outputs for vehicles in cities. But when you go country, it's a big country. Innovating on the waste would be a way to do it. That's what I'd be focusing on. Waste. Renewable waste. It's going to be a lot of it soon. Yeah, it doesn't sound too good. Still talking about our natural resources for the long term. Nothing's different there for the medium and the long term, which is there's nothing here which I think is worth mentioning that a positive outlook for long term, just from the way we're heading, purely because we're lowering our standards of education and not keeping up to date with the tradesmen. Two pillars: university and tradespeople, which are the technicians and everything else. They both need to be strengthened. Strengthen, pillar, the pillar. All right. The last one I was curious about, foreign aid. What was the foreign aid we gave in the last 30 years? In 1993, we gave 1.3 billion to Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, and Fiji. So this is one thing we should address, is that if we're giving all this money to these people, we should be having some kind of beneficial relationship that benefits us. Since 1993 and 2023, we've helped out Papua New Guinea, Indonesia. We've constantly helped out Indonesia and Papua New Guinea. In 2016 to 2020 was 4 billion was given to Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Kenya. 2021 to 2023, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, Afghanistan, and South Sudan, we gave 4.4 billion. This is for the COVID response, apparently. Humanitarian relief, peace building, education. So also showing the amount of wealth we've given to other countries, like Asia Pacific, we gave 2.7 billion. South and Southeast Asia, we gave 1 billion. Africa, we've given 0.6 billion a year. This is a year, yeah? Year on year. Middle East, we've given 0.5 billion. Latin America and Caribbean, 0.3 billion. Multilateral organizations, 0.5 billion. I don't know why we're even giving this. Like, what are we getting for this? What are we getting? I've got no idea. This is something I got to look into, because I got no idea what we're getting from it. I've never seen any benefits from this. Like, what are you getting for this aid? Like, obviously it's good to be a charity, but that's a lot of money. So what are we getting for it? We're not in a position to be doing this anymore. Papua New Guinea gets $1 billion a year from us. I've been to Papua New Guinea. It was like 40 years ago. They still were cannibals. The place is wild. I haven't been there for a few years now, but fuck me, it was wild back then. Indonesia, we give 500 million a year to them. Man, I've been to Indonesia. They hate us. They hate Australians with a passion. Majority of those people don't even know it. and then a majority of them, they just don't like us at all. We should cut that off straight away. Unless that's preventing like illegal immigration, but we've just opened the flood doors, so no one needs to go on the boats anymore. Remember that technical phrase? The boat people. East Timor, 100 to 150 million per year. Yeah, there you go. You can have a look at all those yourself. Trends in foreign aid over 30 years. From the 1990s to 2000s, Australian focus was on Asia-Pacific neighbours. Much of its aid was directed towards poverty alleviation, disaster recovery and conflict rebuilding, e.g. East Timor after independence. Yeah, it was pretty bad over East Timor. I've got some close people that went over there and they've actually got PTSD from it. It's pretty brutal. Affected them personally. 2010s, significant contributions went to the health initiatives, particularly to combat HIV and AIDS, malaria and food insecurity in sub-Saharan Africa. Australian aid also saw a rise in addressing climate change challenges. I'm all about not cutting down forests and polluting the ocean. That's the one that I told you about, like why I love this country. Because the majority of the time, like I've noticed a bit of shift now, like people are just throwing rubbish on the ground. We never had that for so many years. But the majority of the time you swim in our ocean. That's why tourism is so great for Australia. The ocean is immaculate. You hardly ever see rubbish, especially along the beaches as well. And like just generally, you walk around, you relatively never see rubbish. It's sort of, and that comes with like not polluting and putting your rubbish in a bin. I've noticed a little bit of a change of that where, you'd be sitting down, you see a bit of rubbish, like you had a cup or something and from your whatever picnic, and it would fly away with the wind. Like generally you'd be running after that just to get that piece of paper because you didn't want to like make your environment dirty. That's changing a bit. Changing a lot actually. Not seeing that anymore. Not as much. 2020s, more aid was allocated to humanitarian assistance in response to the crisis such as Syria conflict, COVID-19, natural disasters. Well, what happened over there recently, eh? That went to good use. All this went to good use, hey? Where did all that money go? The manufacturers. That's where all that money went to. Maybe that's the reason why we went through it and we're forced to. Natural disasters. Australia has also supported refugees and peacekeeping efforts, particularly in South Sudan, Syria, and Myanmar. Conclusion. Over the past 30 years, Australia has steadily provided foreign aid to various regions with a major emphasis on Asia, Pacific, and Africa, while also making significant contributions to global humanitarian efforts through multilateral organizations. The amount allocated annually has fluctuated based on the particular priorities, but Australia has consistently prioritised poverty alleviation, healthcare, climate change, and disaster relief as key areas for foreign aid. In recent years, the Australian government has also responded to emerging crises such as the pandemic and regional instability, and has focused on addressing issues of refugee displacement and global health security. Mate, you know what we should be focusing on? This country. Fix this country. Make sure this country's going right before you fucking give the money to everybody else. So I was curious, like, what do you actually get for this aid? Diplomatic and strategic influences. building bilateral relationships, and soft power. Really, you don't need any of that. Bugger that. If they like you, they want to trade with you. It's like buying friends. They're going to be good friends, eh? Trade and economic opportunities. Apparently, giving them money increases trade partnerships, resource access, increase regional stability. Stability, I get. You'd want to go over there and increase stability because you don't want unstable neighbors. Regional security and stability, yeah. Trying to counter extreme terrorism, but the thing is that's something they've got to deal with themselves, and we should just protect ourselves from it. Yeah. Promoting humanitarian development goals, strategic geopolitical and security interests, cultural and educational exchange, addressing global changes. Conclusion, Australia's followed aid programs yield a range of strategic benefits, from improving regional security and fostering diplomatic ties to creating a new economic opportunities for Australian businesses. Although the primary aim of foreign aid is to support developed humanitarian efforts and global stability, it also enhances Australia's global standing, strengthens its economic relationships, and helps to secure strategic and security interests in the region and beyond. This holistic approach benefits both the recipient countries and Australia, contributing to long-term global prosperity and regional harmony. Yeah, fair enough, but man, I've been to so many countries that we're giving these aid to, and they hate us. So either the money's not been told it's been given to the people, or they're not reminded that we're actually good people. Yeah, I don't know. Sort of 50-50 about that. I definitely don't feel some kind of like, when going to these countries, some kind of like thanks, appreciation. Sometimes I also feel in danger, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, we're at the end of it. How many hours is that? 3 hours and 10 minutes nearly. Tell you what, I'm going to just taking all this into consideration, just one thing to keep in mind, and you've probably seen this on other videos. I talk a bit about investing. I'm going to talk more about other types of investing, but there's a lot of emphasis in Australia and through the world about home ownership, and I feel there's too much emphasis on that. And the main reason I'm getting the word out there about PulseChain, which is a layer 1 cryptocurrency, is that it really gives you the ability to safe haven well, I'm hoping it will. That will give me or anybody else that contributes or participates a safe haven for their assets, their wealth. But there's also multiple ways to do that. This is my only opinion, and obviously read the disclaimer down below before you act on anything. Yeah, if you want to know more about it, click on the other videos. It's well done for sticking it out if you got to this mark. So it's a long time, and yeah, down below, if you want to help me out in the work I'm doing here, a bit of support, you can give me crypto donations. They're much appreciated. And the information down below. If you're new to crypto, I've got some videos and and links of where you can go ahead and start your investing journey. But yeah, generally, have a good one. Hope you enjoyed the content. subscribe, like, and share. Please share this with other people. There's not a lot of people that can stick it out for this amount of time, but maybe they can sit and listen to this at 2 times the speed, and just take it in, or you might just be able to like lie down and close your eyes and just listen to this, because I guarantee you this information is just not particularly for Australia. It's probably for other countries. It's probably the whole world in general, to get a bit of perspective on what's going on. And we all want to progress to a better way of life. And there's also like taking into consideration like, what is a better life and how does that get created? And what do we need to do to ensure that that continues to be a better way of life? But anyway, hope you all have a good one, and take it easy. I'm signing out now. Catch you later. Bye.